Okay, so I'm over here with Charlie Bauerfeind.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. First, I want to thank you for joining me on this conversation. How have you been?
Yeah. Pretty busy and doing all sorts of stuff. I'm in the process of preparing for the live stuff. I do a lot of broadcast stuff for festivals and for Helloween and stuff. So, they're gonna be over in Japan,
Yeah.
which is gonna be recorded again by Wow TV. So I'm gonna be over there with them, and then I'm gonna do, as it looks like, gonna be involved Rock am Ring,
Okay. Awesome.
and then Wagner, and then later on gonna do Summer Breeze. So it's gonna be a lot of live stuff. And I actually just put my stuff on a brand new computer for all that and
Oh, yeah.
thing, and yeah, you know how that is.
I, I I try to avoid it every time.
Yeah, me too, but now I mean mine is like I have a M1, like a
Yeah.
laptop for the live stuff, and now when I went up to an M4, but to Mac Studio, because nowadays I'm not using any screens anymore. I'm just using VR,
All right.
which is really cool because nobody can see what you're doing then.
I know. I try to understand sometimes, but even I don't understand how it's working precisely.
It
So
works so great because you can blow it up to like a screen resolution you don't even have, and it's
yeah,
fantastic. I mean, it gets kind of on your neck because I'm always moving somewhere.
I
Whereas,
know. Yeah, I mean, I can't even wear glasses, so I
yeah.
don't know how will that work. So, will you be coming to Athens for the Halloween show?
To what? To Athens? No, I don't think so. They only hire me if they do like TV or if it gets
Okay.
broadcasted. I'm not sure, and some of the festivals, gonna have to happen without me, so to speak. No, no, I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
I'd love to see you, because obviously I'll meet you in 2 weeks.
Yes,
Awesome.
it's very close.
Yeah, I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
let's
that's
do
gonna
this.
gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be a lot of talking. They talk a lot and they don't say nothing. There was a song title I once produced. So you're gonna talk a lot and not saying anything. I don't. I'm not hoping so.
No, I'm pretty sure that we will enjoy it and enjoy
Yeah,
that very much. We'll talk about MetalCon later, of
yeah,
course.
no problem.
Uh, so the first question I want to ask you is that you started actually doing productions back in like 88 or 89 that were
Yeah.
awesome. Um, did you start directly doing that like in 88 or 89, or did you realize that you want to do that at some point in your life and
Uh,
then,
no,
started?
it actually went. It started way earlier. I'm way too old to even be on your show. No, but it's like I actually I learned tool and die maker when I was 16 years old, just like
Okay.
stuff, and molding stuff. So I learned that actually, and I always was playing drums. So at some point with 24, actually quite late, I decided to not, want to continue in my normal job and wanted to study music. So I went over to Berkeley and did like 6 semesters there. And I was not really into like all the production stuff at that part. I mean, I was always kind of involved in it because in my bands, we didn't have money to pay a proper engineer back then. And, so we always had to do it ourselves. And it was only like 8-track cassettes or 4-track cassettes. So it was like, really, really basic. But we went and did that, and I always helped, and so I was interested in it. And when we went out and played some shows, we always hired some old, really busty kind of PA systems which never worked. So we always had to repair some stuff. So I had some idea of it, but actually I wanted to become a drummer,
All right.
and it was more of a coincidence. because at that time in 87, 88, there was only two uh, things on Berkeley that needed an entry test and two curriculums, and the one was music production engineering, and the other one was music synthesis, programming synthesizers.
Okay.
It was not because they were so great or anything, but they only could do like 200 people per semester, in music production engineering because they had I think it was like two 8-track studios and two 24-track studios. So that's, how I got into that because everybody took the entry test because
Yeah.
we all thought, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be producers, earn a lot of money.
Yeah. Me-
It didn't work like that, but that was basically the start. So I said, okay, I'm I was starting doing also they have this weird system at Berkeley where they make you basically when you go through the program of music production engineering, you start out with 8-track mixdown, then 8-track recording, then 24-track mixdown and 24-track recording. And while you go through these classes, you can sign up for what's called the recording ensembles. And the recording ensembles can be like jazz, pop. Back then it was like that. I'm not sure how it is nowadays, but I think it's pretty similar. So there was always like a teacher who was producing, basically the head producer, and then there was a student producer, a student engineer, student assistant engineer. So it was like a real world kind of situation.
Yeah.
I wasn't even eligible to do like 8-track recordings, but someone asked me if I ever have done a 24-track recording, and I said sure, which wasn't true, but it didn't matter at that time.
You have
So
to start somewhere.
yeah, you have to start somewhere. But I got myself really into trouble because I signed up for it without even knowing what it was, and it was the Lenny Peterson Back Bay Brass Ensemble, and it was like I think 15 or 18 people, like was brass section, drums, keyboards, piano,
Uh,
guitar, vocals, background vocals, all in one room.
Sounds like a nightmare already.
Yeah, and you have to record it like these uh, recording ensembles took like, I think it was 2 hours even, only 2 hours to record. So you enter a studio and there's nothing set up. Everything is zeroed, like, how you have to work in a big studio setup and you've been passing on to other engineers and stuff. So we were like, nothing was set up. So you had to have a plan and you had
Yeah.
some assistant engineers, hooking up the cables and stuff. And so, I did that and I mean, I was really, swinging it, as we say, for the first time. But it just, was really, really interesting. And like in the second week, after I've done the first mix and then the second week, and then the third week, I started doing like, parallel gated room microphones in the room and stuff because I already got bored with just setting it up. Went like, where's the challenge? No, but it's just you're a student. Nothing can go wrong, really. You're
Yeah, I
not
mean,
punished,
I know,
or
like, for example, I'm not sure if I told you that I teach sound engineering
okay.
here in Greece, and I remember one student of mine, and he said, "Do you like the sound that I did?" I said, "Yeah, it sounds okay, you know." And he said that I tried to see how to do everything differently from the way you said. I'm like, but it's challenging, you know. If it sounds good, it
This
sounds
is
good.
this is actually my key to everything. I never wanted to copy anything. And I always, no matter what assignments we got, you get this practical assignments. They say, oh, set up like a, ping pong delay going through a
Yeah,
picture, blah, 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 patching it into this, blah, blah, whatever the question was. And I just always went like further on because I was never interested in like the, basic kind of stuff, which got
yeah, of
me
course,
sometimes into trouble, because people were saying, well, why is it sounding like that? And I go like, well, this is what I did, and that's what I imagined doing.
awesome.
That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I'm trying to explain to a lot of people. This is really the most important thing. You have to be able to get to your goal that you envision. I mean, that's for me is one of the key things of producing. It's not like, oh, we start and we end somewhere, and sometimes it sounds great, sometimes it doesn't. It's more like you have a plan. You want to have what kind of drum sound do we want to have? Is dry close-up drum sound, big room, whatever. How do we get there? You
I
know?
remember that when you said that on MetalCon during the
Yes,
mix critiques, and it stuck in my mind forever. Like
yes,
you said, where do you want it to go? I'm
yes.
like, that's it.
Because if you can tell me, I cannot even help you. You know,
Yeah,
if you can explain to me what you were trying to achieve, then I can go, wow, you got it 101%. If you cannot explain it to me, it's just something where I go like, yeah, it sounds nice. And most of the stuff nowadays sounds nice. I mean, like I said, we had like 8-track cassettes. And some of the demos we've done even back then sounded really shitty. But there was like, for example, there was one guy from Thunderhead. I don't even know if you remember that band from
yeah,
Helloween.
yeah.
And Alex Scotti, the drummer, he was fantastic in getting like great sounding demo tapes on 8-track cassette. It was just really, really mind blowing. I mean, we had a hard time, doing that again in the studio, so to speak. But yeah, that was always the thing. So, going back to Berkeley, when I started evolving something, whatever it was, I just wanted to try it out. And, by the end of the semester, like Lenny Peterson came up to me and he said, would you be up for, signing? Because he really liked, he literally said to me, this is the best sounding semester he ever did, with his
Right.
which, I was flattered and said, oh, great. So he asked me, would you be into doing it again? Because I only could do it in the summer semester because they didn't have enough people. That's why they even asked me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't eligible in the fall semester either. So, Lenny Peterson came up to me and said, do you want to do it again next semester? And I said, of course, if you can manage, because I'm not going to be eligible for it. So he went to the dean of MP&E and he said, look, I want to have Charlie, engineering uh, my stuff next semester. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he said, because they were kind of giving them a hard time, so he told them if Charlie doesn't do it, I'm gonna drop the ensemble.
All
It,
right.
which
So
it,
you're going to be like a successful good one.
yeah, well, it gave me kind of a push, and then I was like, okay, so let's try that. And I was doing a lot of stuff, and I mean, we were always doing some demos, and in school, but I was also starting being a assistant engineer in a studio called Downtown Recorders in Boston. I don't know if it's still there, but it was like really old. It was in the basement of a huge hall. Above it was like yeah, they did like vernissage stuff and, had some stuff going on there during the week and on the weekends. And in the cellar, there was like the studio, and it was used by Aerosmith. They did all their demos there. And while I was there, we did Pixies, the Doolittle
Yeah.
album was done there. So, I assisted on that. And I mean, we weren't paid. This is the first thing that I've tried it with so many people to go like, okay, you want to be an assistant engineer? And the first question is, how much do I earn? And let me put it like this, even so I was, quite good already, like at school. And, I got people I mean, Dream Theater, they graduated when I started at Berkeley. It was,
Okay.
it is a Berkeley band. So, but there was also like a band called Full Circle. They were signed to CBS Jazz. And one of my professors produced the record. So he took me out to New York. So I, got to Nile Rodgers, the Sky Studio, where they were mixing. We were out in Carlisle at Blue Jays, blah blah blah, doing like all this, more or less like jazz fusioning stuff. And so I quite a good name, but like when I entered the real world, it was like you don't get paid. You have to work like one day from 10 to 6, doing all the, cleaning up and phone stuff. And then we were like, we could pick like different sessions because they had a lot of smaller sessions going. So you were saying, okay, I'm gonna come in on Tuesday night, blah blah blah, and I'm gonna, be assistant engineer. And the only thing we got paid was actually we could book the studio downtime when the studio was not booked for half the price. So I think
Yeah.
they were about like $60 or $80 an hour. So I could basically book it for 40. And if I could ask my clients, like doing demos for like 50 or maybe 55, $60, bang, you earn some money. Even,
Yeah. And
and
even nowadays, it's difficult for people to understand that, like, trust me, I've tried so much trying
yeah,
to be an assistant engineer, but in Greece, most of us keep saying, like, no, I can do that, everything on my own, and I don't need help.
yeah.
One studio told me that, I like the way you work and I like the way you think,
Mhm.
but I don't want you to do it for free. And I said, okay, pay me. You know, and then,
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
common logic, right? And
yeah.
he said that I can't afford to pay you. So I've been, I started, trying to do things on my own
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and blah blah blah. Managed to pay like for 14 months for a seminar, and I've been spending my life, inside the studios, like let's do this and let's do that. So you can learn from everything. But I think I told you this last year we met at MetalCon, that when I started, getting into metal music,
hmm,
uh, for some reason, let me explain that in Greece we love Gamma Ray, Blind Guardian,
yeah,
uh, only the first Rob Halford album. Sorry, Rob.
yeah,
And I just realized that I kept seeing your name everywhere, like Bauerfeind, Bauerfeind,
yeah.
Bauerfeind. I'm like, even the Rage album, like the one Sound Chaser and Unity.
Yes.
And then I realized that I started saying, I want to do sound like this. I want to produce music, not as a musician, but as a producer,
Okay.
uh, similar to this guy.
Okay.
And, I started experimenting here and there. And right after we met last year, I came back to Greece and I quit my job.
There you
So
go.
yeah,
That's
I'm a bit hungry right now, but I'll find a way.
oh,
But
yeah.
actually, it's what I feel better. Inside, I love what I do, so
Yes.
it's all for the better. Anyway,
That's yes.
so even though you think you're old, because age is just a number.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
so you keep influencing me, and I was like, that's it. I'm
Yeah.
quitting. Like I went to the office and I was like,
Yeah.
that's
It's
it.
this is
So
this is exactly what you have to do because this is actually very similar. After I left school,
yeah,
when I came home and I went to Munich, we went
yeah,
down to Munich and I tried to get a job as an assistant engineer and I couldn't. There was not a single studio actually hiring assistant engineers on a paid
okay,
level. There was only Union Studios, which was a huge, like three-facility studio, which did like everybody recorded there. Deep Purple, Queen, all the old rock and roll
yeah,
bands. It was like one of the main studios. They had a program where they had like assistant engineers. And the other one was Mark Zelmer, Musicland, where Queen and Billy
yeah,
Swan, blah blah, recorded and stuff. And these were the only two interesting studios. Everybody else did not hire assistant engineers. So I was literally, sitting there with my little knowledge and had no chance to actually learn from anybody. It was a coincidence when I went around the studios and brought my CV and said, look, this and this, and I can do whatever you want me to do. I swipe the floors, I clean the toilets, blah, 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 as long as you let me in. And nobody wanted me. I actually met one of the producers. He used to work with Gotthard. And like a couple of years ago, when we were finished with one of the records, they actually introduced him to me, and he said, great to meet you, Charlie, and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at him and said, you know that I applied as a, assistant engineer at your studio, and you fuckers wouldn't take me. You're lost. I said,
Yeah, I mean,
you always meet twice, but it was kind of really funny. But he actually worked in one of the biggest studios, in Pilot Studios, which had like a two-floor recording room for drums, and had like a Harrison 10, like the digital
yeah.
controlled analog console and blah blah blah. So it was like really one of the best studios. No chance. So it took me forever to even like get any job going.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is how you suddenly, I mean, after, we don't know your full background story, but, and after that, you start working with Halford, Motorhead, Venom,
Yeah. It didn't
like,
go that fast, but yeah, it took me quite some years actually to get to these kind of names. It was really coincident. I have to admit, I was never a metal fan back in the 80s. When I was around, I was more into like the, kind of strange British pop rock punky kind of stuff, and like for example, Roger Chapman was one of my
yeah,
heroes then, and I later on I actually did one record with him, which was for me like the fantastic thing. But I was never into metal to the point where I even could remember the names of the people. And like in Munich, everything was like Schlager. It was very lightweighted, but I did a couple of really nice sessions with Marsha Barrett from Boney M, and one with
awesome.
with a guy from there was a band called Santa Esmeralda. They did the song "Oh Lord, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" in the 70s, 80s,
Yeah, it rings a bell.
a bit with the clapping stuff. And it was of course it's an old 50s song, but they did a really nice version, and it was really successful. And they kind of tried to revive him in the 80s. So I was part of that session, and he was like, this guy was really crazy, a singer, and I never experienced something like that again. We did like a Jacques Brel. He's like one of the big like French songwriters, but very literature kind of guy, very
Yeah.
mellow. And Jacques Brel did a song called Ne me quitte pas, don't leave me, which is basically like the second French anthem, national anthem.
All right.
Everybody knows the songs, and this was the time where like Grace Jones, did her stuff, and so we said, oh, we're gonna go into that direction. So it was like this dance production, and this guy was fantastic singer, fucking great. I mean, he started singing this Jacques Brel song, and he got so much into it that from one second to the other, he was gone. We could
Yeah.
see him like through the window, and then he broke down and he started crying. He was crying in there. He was so much into the meaning of the song that he couldn't perform anymore. And so the
Yeah, that's
producer,
it. This is the difference with art and people who just make music or just paint or
yes,
whatever.
absolutely.
So
So this
how
was
did you manage to actually mold, because you did mold that, the sound of European power metal?
well, like again, this was it. I wasn't really into that kind of music. So in Munich, like I said, I did a lot of that stuff, and we had like for the studio that I was finally got a job in, really by coincidence, and because I just went there to check out some gear, and I left my CV, and like 3 months later, they called me at 5 o'clock in the morning if I want to do a shootout mix for a production, actually, and that was a hard rock production from a
Okay.
band called Caro, which were signed to Teldec, and they had a record called Heavy Birthday with like a birthday cake but made out of metal on the sleeve. So I went there, and they gave me one song, and then I had like 8 hours to mix it. So I did what I wanted to do, and I handed it in. And next morning they called me, and they basically told me that I won the shootout. So
Awesome.
I mixed the whole album. That it was really coincident. I would still be in Munich doing nothing. And then, I mixed this album and they really liked it. Record company really liked it. So I did a couple of more things in the rock department. And then there was like this guy, and he was trying to get some, basically business into the studio. And he came in with a band called Sieges Even, from Munich, like the Holzwart brothers. And, so I played them all my Rocky stuff. And they were like, not even interested. They were going like, yeah, what? So fucking what? And then
Awesome.
in the end, I was like, okay, what can I play to them? So I played them the Full Circle album, this CBS jazz fusion album I was working on as well in the States. And I played that to them, and that just broke the ice. Then they understood that I, not only going like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, that my mind is quite open to some more complex music. Because of course, when you do like all the jazz and the fusion stuff, you come up with different, rhythms up to like polyrhythms and stuff. I'm a drummer myself, so I'm quite good in that stuff, but that was basically like the my starting point. So I did like the Steps album, and I did another album with them in Munich, which was the one afterwards. Now I don't remember. It's like an orange sleeve. I have to get it out, but it was also like a really fantastic band, and that actually got me into SPV because all these bands were signed to SPV in Hanover. So actually, SPV called me up and said if I would like to come to uh, uh, up to Hanover and start talking to them and about doing some projects for them. And that's actually what I've done. I drove up there, and they hooked me up with a guy in horror sound, not horror. I just have to hook up my. Just realizing that my laptop might go out. Sorry.
No, it's
Out
okay.
of power.
It's all right.
Uh, so he hooked me up with Horus sound, like the Horus, like the bird thing from Egypt,
Yeah.
kind of. And that was like the studio where like the Scorpions did all their stuff, and Victory and Gamma Ray was in there, blah blah blah. So I was like, I had, you know, I basically just drove there, I said hello, and he said, maybe I give you a chance, and we just try out what you can do. So, then he called me up like a couple of weeks later and said, why don't you want to come to, let me just switch that off because otherwise, uh, you might have to live a little bit with some background noise. I have some, my vent just went on the laptop. Uh,
Technology.
but yeah, so I went there and I walked into the office and he just handed me the key to the studio.
Awesome.
He showed me around the studio, said, so look, this is the studio. And they had like an ADT, which was the size of an SSL and like fucking big one, 48 track analog, everything you can imagine in there, like all the AMS stuff, RMX, DMX, blah, 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 Orsa Major, all the stuff, the 480s, 224s, the Lexicon stuff. And, so he handed me the key and said, the band is going to come in an hour. I'm going to take off now. I'm going to be on holidays for like
Like,
2 weeks.
bye.
Bye-bye. And let's see what we have when I come back. So he took off, and I was there with the band for like, it was 10 days. It wasn't 2 weeks, but 10 days around. So I was in there, and, so I set up, okay, let's set up. It was Glenmore, actually, later on, like Danny from Helloween played
Yeah.
drums, and that's how I met him. But anyways, I mean, this was like, they were signed to Warner. And so, I did, and they had a drummer which wasn't very experienced. Let me put it like this. He had a hard time. A lot of, I'd never played like double bass drum myself, not to the extent where I could like join a metal band. But I understood very early how important like the balance is, how you sit and how
Yeah.
you lean into a drum kit to get certain sounds. And that was really interesting. And this guy had a really hard time. And he was like, he almost couldn't make it. So I said, okay, let's change the height of your seat, blah, blah, balance you out differently. And it worked. He played the demo and it sounded really good. So we had a really nice demo. So when the guy came back, and he went in and he listened to it and he looked at me and said, how did that happen? I said, well, that's what we were doing the last 10 days. I mean, you had me a band. Of course, I mean, we had some fun, but I was always like, working my ass off. It was always 16, 18-hour days, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's because I also did an interview with Lars Lammert, and he said
Yeah,
that, and I know it, that it's never like 9 to 5. It's
no,
16 hours, 14
yeah.
hours, maybe
It's
20 hours. I mean,
it,
since I
it
quit my job, I only pretty much eat noodles and drink Monster, the energy
yeah,
drink.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I know you're living a very unhealthy life, as we all
Yeah,
did. We were young. I know. I was even smoking back then. I was not really a smoker. I was always on and off. And
you started smoking after you became an engineer.
yeah, it just happened. But I was never into alcohol. I was never into drugs. That helped me a lot. I got a lot of jobs, believe it or not, because people before me, engineers and producers, were just heavily doing drugs. And
Yeah,
basically, it's something that is great in the bands. Well, oh yeah, and we do this and this, but it's not so great in the business. If they
exactly.
have someone who can handle, a really tough and a rough session, even on the drug side, but they don't want to have anybody who's doing it themselves. So I got a lot of jobs actually from people that fucked up because they were doing drugs as a producer or engineer.
So at
Anyways,
least you learn how to manage, to stand with other strong personalities. I mean, like
yeah,
you worked with Lemmy, you worked with Venom.
yeah.
Uh, if you can make them record, you can always do it.
But it's something you have to learn. I mean, I'm not. I was really shocked when I saw when they did now when Andre died of Angra Matos, and then they did like this movie, and like you know went back and got some old videos and stuff. And for the first time, I saw these videos. Even like, and there's one on YouTube from Running Wild, where I'm like, where we're giving interview, me and Sasha Pate and stuff, and I went like, was I really that fucking, you know,
Yeah, I know. Also, you told
upfront? I
me,
mean, I was just trying to do my best, but
yeah,
I really figured it out very early. You have to have what I call broad shoulders. You have to, if you walk in, there cannot be a question who is telling who what to do. That's
yeah,
that's very important, and I always had that. I never, I had it a couple of times. Not maybe if we get to that, I'm gonna tell you a couple of stories where I actually didn't do it, and it fucked me up. It was really bizarre, but uh, I always had that. I always was like, and I never, even if I was in doubt, I never have, you know, anybody realize that I
yeah,
was. And it came to the point after years and years of already having done one of the really, great work in my career. I was still like, I had always had this in the middle of this of a production, and I know a lot of people have that too, musicians and producers, where you go like, ah, shit, we should have just started all over again. It's all bullshit. I don't know how it is with you. I have that, every time.
every single time. Like I
But
just I just delivered the song that I mixed, and
yeah,
the band told me, "No, it's amazing. Don't change anything." And my like two voices inside my head. The one said
yeah,
like, "Oh, okay, you're done. Get some rest,"
yeah,
and the other one was like, "You're an idiot. You have to work all over again."
yeah. Yes,
it's
I know.
it's always like that.
This is exactly that someone once told me you never finish a project, you just hand it in.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like let's fader down, and I can tell you exactly what I would do different the next time.
It's you just learn
I already
to ignore it better, I think. With all these years.
yeah, it helps it helps to ignore, but it's I mean the hardest part is not to have anybody realize that you are in doubt. I mean nowadays I don't have that anymore. I have to say thanks God because it was really stressful. But when it was like I say, in the late 90s, when I was doing quite some of the big stuff and like Saxon and Venom and stuff, I had that. I was like, no, this is all wrong. We have to do it again and again. But it's not. I never went back. Actually, very seldomly. I mean, what we had in the beginning, because it
Yeah.
was always the same, we recorded drums, and then the next thing was recording bass. Because, I thought, to have a great rhythm section going, then it's cool. I totally forgot about tuning. So we recorded the bass, then we recorded the guitar, then we re-recorded the bass because it never was in tune till I started just doing drums, guitars, and then the bass because it's
Yeah,
much easier.
it's
You
always
know,
like that, some just minor details, but you always say, of course.
yeah,
Like I know how
it's
that
there.
is. But yeah, it's a
It,
stressful
it, it
job in general. I know,
yes,
like
yes, it
I
is,
started
and it's
having, white hair in the past last year, so
yeah. Well,
it's not going
it's
to end up good. By the
no,
way,
no.
I remember I was just taking a break from mixing the song that I told you about,
Hmm?
and I remember that I saw like an advertisement from MetalCon
Okay.
about your drum masterclass,
Yes,
and they said like 12 spots, hurry up. I'm like, shit, and I'm like, I have to
you're
get
gonna
my
get
ticket.
in anyways. So just don't worry.
I got my ticket, but I remember like I was like, here's some more white here now.
Yeah. But I tell you what, if you want to, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that's okay with the MetalCon guys. If you want, you can assist on it.
That would be awesome.
Then yeah, we're gonna start setting up one day before, and it's gonna be different because I was talking to Ingo about it, and it's like
Yeah,
last time it was a lot about engineering, I said that and putting up microphones and stuff, and I said to Ingo, this is not really producing. To me, producing is something different, and I'm pretty sure there will be some discussions about what production really means and what a producer's job really is.
yeah,
And I went like, I would like to show people how to get a drummer to perform differently, and get different results because nothing I'm talking about, it's coming out of my I thought about it, so now let's just tell everybody. It's all experience. And the first time I experienced something like that was with Motorhead, with Mickey D. That's why he
yeah.
is my hero drummer. And I know a lot of drummers, Danny and stuff. It's but I want to be like the most favorite. And I always go, yes, you are right behind them, but it's Mickey was just it was really mind blowing. First of all, the power and the stamina. Then,
Absolutely, absolutely. And
he's
we're very proud that he's half Greek.
yeah,
We're like, yeah.
yeah. He's
At
like,
least we have one good drummer in Greece.
there you go. Yeah.
I remember like the first time that I sit behind the console to record the drummer,
Hmm?
I was more like a tyrant because he was working with his headphones and he was recording, and I was just pushing the talk back button. I said, "No, you suck. Like you're horrible." Again, what the
Okay.
fuck? Maybe you should go home.
Yeah.
And
Ooh,
I was like 24 and he was 53. And
okay.
he came out and he said, I'm 53 and I wanted to start crying. So I'm like, yeah, but you did record
Yeah.
the drums. Sometimes
Yes.
not not as
It's
horrible as I did, but some people need to be pushed a lot.
yes. There's for me. There's always two kind of musicians. The ones that react to what I call negative comments and negative pushing. I mean, I have drummers where I literally go like, fuck, my grandma could have played that one better, or, I just give, it's always on the funny or the sarcastic side. And sarcasm, there's always some truth in it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You have to, some react like that, some you destroy. So you have to
Yeah.
be very careful. I mean, I've seen people where you have to basically, even if they lift up the guitar or their sticks or whatever, you have to go like, "Fuck, that's great." Never seen someone like that pick up the
Exactly.
sticks.
And it
And
depends.
not,
It We also have to be psychologists sometimes. Like I remember, I was recording vocals with a singer, and I know the band since I was 13, and he wanted to work with me because I know the band since I was 13, and he was a bit anxious. He didn't sing for 15 years or something like that, and he
yeah,
started. He was on the mic and I was like, and I said, George, listen, the vocals are very good, but let's push it some more because I want to get that very old school feeling that I remember as a kid from
yeah,
your music, and it worked like that. It was very easy. So
yeah.
it
It's
always depends. Yeah.
yeah, it's very. I would even go so far. You always have to be a psychiatrist when you enter. I mean, let me put it like this. That might be just in my career, but I just got hooked up with a lot of, hard to handle people.
Yeah.
And I went through a lot of learning process. But that also got me jobs where nobody else would be called because they know
Exactly.
they cannot handle the session. This is something. Yeah, I always go like, if what you can do as an engineering. For me, engineering is just a side thing. I don't. I always went like I do a sound check and then I either like the sound or I work really hard. I mean, I have done drum sound checks for 2, 3, 4 days, just to get the sound, checking different heads, doing all the stuff. And, finally you have it. And then I want to forget it. This is why I
Yeah.
hate like these old mixing consoles and stuff where you have like, and then you have dropouts and this and that. I hated that. And this like, this one studio that's in Hanover, they had this old Series Zero board, which was one of the beta test boards, and it had a lot of trouble. And it was always the same. You went, oh, fucking hell, one of the room microphones dropped out during the take or whatever. So, that was like, I really hated that because once I'm done with the sound, I want to concentrate on the performance because
Exactly.
what I think really is production. People go, yeah, as a producer, you have to be the songwriter and play on the record. And I go, no, 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 no. It would be really good if we could do the same as they do in movies. If you read the rundown after a movie, you will find like the best boy, the runner. You will find the gaffer, the guy who just tapes down fucking. Everybody is listed as what they do, and not
Exactly. Yeah.
this in music, and this is not so much in rock and metal, but I've seen it in pop. I like in Munich. People were like named the producers. They were never in the studio. They had nothing to do with the record, but they would sell it. That was one of the
Yeah.
explanations at one time. The guy who sells it to the record company is the producer, and I go, no, it's not. It's different in movie because you have a director, and then you have a producer, and then you have a staff producer, and then you have this and this, and it's all laid out. And that's how I look at it. It's like Michael Jackson. If he didn't write the song, someone else wrote the song. Bang, he performed it. To make him perform like that, to make the performance carry the song, that's what a producer is there for. Then, of course, out of money and business decisions, a lot of people like to have a songwriter there who can actually go in and do songwriting, or who is good on keyboards because they don't want to have a different keyboard. But that's only pluses. That has nothing to me, nothing to do with producing. I always told people because I got a lot of offended people when I started with Pro Tools really, really early. And I always went with Pro Tools. I mean, a lot of the things that nowadays, like the younger engineers are telling, I do this and I do that, and I went from this to that. I went like, I did that as a 95. I did that when I had my 8-track Pro Tools system. It's, I mean, we've done so many things. At that time, I was working with Sasha B together, and I mean, we stopped the session at 1 o'clock at night, and then we sat there till like 8 o'clock in the morning, trying out stuff with the computer stuff. Then
Yeah.
went to bed for like 2 hours. 10 o'clock, we were back in the studio. That's how it was, and it
This is how it
was
works. I
really.
mean, I remember, I was 13 when I tried to record my first song, and it was like a hi-fi with just deck A and B. So I was
Mhm.
recording with deck B, and then took deck B cassette to A, and then over
Yeah,
layer.
yeah,
After 8 hours, I had my first song, but you couldn't even listen to that anymore. So I said,
yeah.
okay,
It was a little.
maybe I need a computer,
Yeah, yeah,
just
that's.
maybe. But yeah, that's the thing in evolution. Like I tried Pro Tools, I didn't understand anything. For me, it was very complicated.
Okay.
Uh, for me, Cubase is pretty easy. It's really complicated for someone else. So
Yeah.
it all depends. But lately, I see myself going, really analog because I missed the essence. And even though
Yeah.
I'm the generation, yeah, no,
Yeah.
goodbye
Right.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me put it like this. You always go through different phases. And I mean, I was strictly in the box for like 15, almost 20 years.
Yeah,
I don't fucking care about anybody telling me, oh, you have to. I was always in nice studios. So I did like with Saxon and Motorhead. We were in a studio where they had like old, kind of really nice sounding MCI console. And they had like the MCI machines, and they had the big thing. They were discrete. They had no fucking chips in them besides the switching, but everything else was done with relays and stuff. So yeah, there's some certain things to analog which are like really nice. I didn't care
yeah,
because I know that the essence of a song comes from something else. It's very simple. I just prepared the speech for the MetalCon. I said, if you want to talk like analog and if you want to talk like high-end equipment, we are talking about the last 10%.
yeah. I remember that.
Okay, we are talking about maybe 50. We are from 85 to 100. Now, honestly, tell me that you are up with everything you own, with everything you have, you're up to 85%. Okay?
Yeah,
Because the
yeah,
people that I talk to,
that's
not
the
even
truth.
me, to reach 85% for me is really, really hard. That takes a lot of like physical knowledge,
Yeah,
acoustics knowledge, psychology, making get the right performance before I even hit the last 15%. Go like, maybe I should use the U87 or maybe the U47, or if we just got this new microphone in. To be perfectly honest, this is when I was talking to Ingo about the MetalCon. I said, look, I'm just gonna bring for easiness. I'm gonna bring my own. I have this merging 48 channel converter and merging. It's like it's very clean. It's not a rock and roll thing. But I went like, it has mic pre's in it. I don't want to use anything than plugins. I want to show kids. I even went so far as said, if you want, you can get me a Behringer. I don't care
yeah,
because this is what the young people now use. So,
exactly. And
and
but
so,
that my only problem, for me personally at least, is that, for example, like Pro Q or EQs, like in that direction. Uh, I always realized that I was mixing with my eyes.
yeah,
And for me, it was like a big trap. And then I did get a Behringer, like a UB802, the small one. And just
yeah,
with 3-band EQ, everything was better. So I went on
Okay.
to the Tasca Model 24 console, which is a hybrid. And the
Yeah.
thing I love is that I can send, everything from Cubase directly to the console and mix the analog way. And,
Okay.
it was the first time that I had a big smile, like
Okay.
from the way that I made it sound like.
Okay.
And yeah, of course, I mean, there are some limitations for some people,
No, no,
but
that's I,
for me, that's it.
I, this was the way you experienced it. I was for me it, and like I say, I tell you the story how I got hooked up with Motorhead. Okay, and it was like I got my in I think '95. I got my first Pro Tools system. The first all in the box record I did just turned 30, which is Holy Land from Angra, which is done
Yeah.
completely in the box and on ADAT. And I actually just transferred some tapes. I'm gonna have to take some pictures and show it to people because I really get bored with people, not hitting the converters right. They're all hung up in this -18, -24 bullshit. And I go like, yeah, I mean, if it distorts, it's wrong. I mean, if I can hear it go,
Yeah.
it's
And
I,
I do have some multi tracks from Mickey D that everything is distorted because it just sounded better.
yes, there you go. This is exactly what it is. So, I'm not afraid to distort anything. And it's really I'm gonna do my own. I have some right now I'm working on some how you say that channel chains
Yeah.
where I put together like what I use on drums and stuff and everything. It's based around a 3-band like distortion plugin more or less because distorting and saturating and that's what analog also does. It just doesn't do it on a little bit on a different way, but
Yeah.
saturation, nothing else than compression. You're adding something and you're bringing out if you know what you're doing. And this is really, what people have to do, go out and really learn the fucking physics because it's not how can I say that? It's not so much about I learned that and then it was easier for me to do it like this way or this way. This is like your personality you're exploring.
Yeah.
You need to be able, like you go on a festival, okay? You go front of house, and you show me just one engineer who is not able to do a blindfolded and not hearing anything sound check. Nowadays, they come with keys. Now, the young
Yeah.
ones. If you steal their key, that's it. This show is going to sound horrible because they are not, but they're really the slightly older ones and the ones that know how to do it. They go, I can do a blindfolded sound check, not hearing any signal. That's what I was doing when I told you about the Berkeley thing with the Back Bay Brass Ensemble thing. That's what I was doing. I came in, I sent out, gave everybody what they had to do.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting down going, EQ, okay, for bass drum. Bass drum, basic frequency, 80 hertz, smaller, maybe 100, 80, 60. What do you want to do? The first, like, anti sound that you want to get rid of is the octave above.
Yeah.
Then comes the fifth above. So you go like 80, 160, you roll it off. You can roll off another one and up to the 320. And then you search for your click and you go like, oh, I want to have a
Yeah.
low click, 1.5 to 3, or even like at 4 to 5 kilohertz, whatever. That's it. Then you do the same with the snare, with the toms. Once you learn like basic frequencies from an orchestra, because every instrument there has their basic frequency, which is the pure frequency they're sounding. So if you want to have a pure sound, that's what you have to bring out and take away the cloudiness. And
Exactly.
every good engineer can do that. I mean, that to me is basic stuff that people should be able to do that. and then before they get into producing as an engineer, because in our field, like the metal stuff and the rock stuff, it's a lot about producing a sound. For me, it's also producing performance, but a lot is I want to have the whatever the snare sound from the Scorpions of the 80s. Yeah, how do you get that? You take a double pinstripe and you put it on and you just tune it really low and you tune down everything till it almost falls apart. And then you try to, you get the snap. And if you don't have enough snap, take a DBX 160, get the, and then you have
Y-
all of a sudden you
Oh,
have this.
it's always like that, some minor detail that you have to listen
Exactly.
to find it. Like, for example, when I started, working with super distorted guitars, there was one terrible thing that sometimes, I still do it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I scoop the mids,
Mhm.
so all you hear is whoosh, and I'm like,
Okay.
why it sounds horrible? Because I can get the drums for some reason to sound pretty okay. Um, I can combine the bass with the drums, and it sounds like
Yeah.
ultra low and but in a
Mhm.
good way. And then the guitars like shh. I'm like, but then
Yeah.
I started working a lot more on guitars. I started focusing on guitars. Because these days younger people just go and say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll have to cut on 100 and boost at 6K because this guy said that on YouTube without actually
Yeah.
listening what's going on. Like, if you have a lo-fi black metal guitars with no low end, why should you go and
Yeah.
cut like 100 and boost at 6K? It makes no sense.
Yes. No,
That's the thing.
absolutely. It's like for me, it was even harder because I didn't know what it's supposed to sound like. I had to do a lot of listening to people. And I will never forget when they were like afraid from Heaven's Gate, when he walked into the session, he said, oh, he wants to have a vocal sound like Rob Halford. And I went like, yeah, no problem. I didn't know who Rob Halford was. And at that time, there was no internet. It was not going to, okay. Well, no, I went over the street into the, little shop and bought like a rock hard magazine to find Rob Halford. And okay, he's with Judas Priest. Okay. And then I, listened to a couple of records that were lying around the studio, and I went like, okay, that's what he means. I'm just good in analyzing things and
Yeah.
and make them adapt because obviously Fred is not the same voice as
Yeah,
Rob.
of course.
Found out 10 years later.
But
You
this
know,
is how I remember. I also remember that when you did the masterclass last year with showing your vocal favorite chain of
just,
plugins, and
yeah,
I think you were doing for Van Canto, right? Yeah. And
yeah, baby.
I remember
That's the
I
easiest.
raised my hand and I said, "That's the same thing you did with Rage."
Yeah,
Because it's all in the ear at the end of the day.
yes,
That's
yes,
all. That's all you have to train.
yeah. It's. I always, listen to what people want. Then I, try to understand that, and then you basically analyze for yourself. You go like, okay, this is what makes that thing kick, And
Yeah,
Halford, a different kick than Michael Kiske. It's
exactly.
just worlds apart. It's totally different vocals. It's different than Hansi from Blind Guardian. It's different than PB from, and nobody I worked with a lot of different bands over the years. Nobody wanted to sound. There was not a single band that hired me because, I had worked with Blind Guardian or with Venom or with this. Nobody. It was never like that. They all came to me and said, we want to have our own sound. I was called in when they said, look, we have to develop a new sound because we lost someone in from our band. He's not with us anymore. He's joined a different band, whatever, to make it to get the essence again of a band.
Yeah.
And that was always really interesting for me on the production side, and it's like I said, I had to learn a lot and I had to listen a lot. And sometimes I had to shut up because it's better to say nothing than to say the wrong thing. But
Yeah,
it's
I know.
it's
But
it's
by the way,
really
how do you feel about how the production sounds, in 2026? For me, I don't like it. I'm not like
yeah,
everything is super clean and it's like a
yeah.
preset
But
all the time.
yes, it's like a recipe, and it's what bothers me more is that the industry, is also like pushing that. I mean,
Yeah,
there's bands out there that have highly successful, and they have no edge at all, in the metal. Then I mean, what I call edge, and metal to me was always about attitude, about being different, being edgy, being and I never could produce a band that is into this growling stuff because I would have to learn what growling makes it really outstanding. With the live stuff I'm doing, I've sometimes worked with people that never would call me into the studio, but so I learned how this is how the good stuff needs to be brought out, how they stand out, how it really growls, and a lot of plugins and stuff. Like I say, I mean, right now I'm not so much into to the analog world anymore, but anyways, I mean the plugins that are out there, it's like all about yeah, you can clean your vocal track with one AI button,
yeah.
and I go, fuck, why
No, no,
would you
no, it's
want
not.
to do that?
But lately this whole industry, it's for me. I was talking with the Marcus. He was also in MetalCon last year, and I remember that actually my wife said that it's not a mix anymore. It's like you right now they're like separate engineers because you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
actually listen to a great kick, a great snare, uh, a very soft hi hat, great bass, but it's not coming together.
yeah.
And
But
I don't like that. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I always had to cope with is like the hi-hat. You were just saying, having a low level hi-hat. And that just happened to me that way because I worked with people. Like I have worked with this one guitarist who came into the session and he goes like, "What's this funny noise in the verses always coming in?" And we were like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" We go like click, 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 and he went, "Hey, it's the hi-hat." And he went, "Turn it off. I don't want to hear it." And that
Yeah,
stuck with me. I have at least 4 or 5 clients I could tell you about that the guitarists don't like hi-hat because
I
it gets into the distortion of the guitar.
exactly, yeah. Every time, for me it's like I kept saying that I hate, these harsh hi-hats
Yeah,
because every time you like, let's say you can listen to a great riff and all you hear is I'm like,
yeah,
fuck
yes.
off.
And then you need a lot of
Get up.
a lot of compression and limiting on your master, and it gets even more annoying. It's really hard to handle. Let me put
And
it like
this is
this.
why I always use de-esser. De-esser is my favorite plugin for hi-hats most
Well,
of the
hi-hat,
time.
yeah. Yeah, that definitely works. I mean, I have DSs all over the place. I mean, this was the first thing I learned when I walked into Fleming Rasmussen's place, Sweet Silence. We were transferring some stuff, and I was at that time I was really, one of the only ones even in Europe being really big in the Pro Tools world because I did a Frankfurt music fair. I did the main stage presentation for DigiDesign back then. And at that time, I had a 16-track card. They couldn't do more than 16 tracks
Yeah.
at the time. But I got for doing the show. And we actually did it with some of the Land of the Free stuff from Gamma Ray. And it was really funny because I walked in to these guys to the breakfast tables, and they were kind of looking at me and going like, so what are you going to present? And blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we do this and this and this, but we have a session from Land of the Free, from Gamma Ray, Kai Hansen, the old Helloween guitarist. And this guy went bang. He was a Helloween fan from the States. So from this moment on, I had free hand to do anything there. And it was
Yeah.
actually a really nice thing. And I got a second card, for being paid for my services. And by the end of the show, Frankfurt show, the head technician came to me and he gave me a cable. And he said, this is the cable you need to plug them together to make them work as one 32-channel system. And he said, you officially have the first 32-channel system in Europe because nobody else has this cable. And I went like, yeah. I went home and I actually I mixed Angra's Holy Land. That was right the next album I did. And that's when I used that machine. So yeah, I'm completely another thing, and it just happened to me. If we go back to the discussion about analog, I had to sound so analog without being, because everybody was, bashing at me using a computer. I was using computers in metal way before. I remember the guy who actually dealt with Motorhead and Saxon in Europe when they were on tour, and he's from my area. He's from Nuremberg. Unfortunately, he died like 10 years ago, but he used to be from Nuremberg, and he hired me for a mix for a small band. Actually, he hired a friend of mine. He couldn't do it, so he called me up and said, hey, Charlie, can you sub for me? Blah, blah, blah. So I went in, and, I was there setting up my rig and all my computer, and he was like, he walked by because he came in and I wasn't done yet with my streaming, my backup. So I said, look, I need another hour or so to finish my stuff. So then we can start. So he went out and passed by the studio window, and it was open with the client, with the artist. And he went like, oh, I really hate this fucking computer shit. This has nothing to do with rock and roll. And I went like, oh, great. And we started working maybe at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 6 o'clock, we had the first mix. And ever since, from that moment on, he was a complete fan of Pro Tools and the digital side.
No, it makes sense.
But for me, because I always had to sound like analog, and I know exactly what to do. It was very easy on analog. I had to relearn that when I've been 10 years ago. I went back for the first time and I started hybriding. I bought like a Chandler, mini mixer, and some stuff. And it's a great piece of equipment. It's just not for metal. Never use it.
It's not. I just tried the. There's a guy he has a studio, with an SSL console, like 5 minutes from here. And I'm like, do you want me to bring you any coffee? So, and I tried that. I'm like,
no. It doesn't work. We need for all the speed metal stuff, everything that's fast. You need the transients. You have to control transients. And if you don't know how to do that, you're gonna have a really hard time. And this is this is also why my setups. I just watched a very famous. I normally don't do that. Watching these videos on YouTube from very famous mixer guys and blah, blah, blah. And they tell you what they do and what they don't. I have people literally coming up to me and said, I just watched this and this on YouTube from this and this guy. This setup looks exactly like your setup. And I go like, yeah, maybe not. But I just use everything in the kitchen sink. I know people that go like, why do you have like 3 or 4 plugins in a row? I have like a multiband, EQ, tape, multiband. Bang. I don't care. I have setups where I literally have 10, 12 plugins in a row. I just know what to turn to when I go like, oh, I need a little bit of a tighter low end. Hey, SSL.
Yeah, I mean
You
that's the
fantastic,
thing.
really
Uh,
fast release side. You
it
know,
it
that's what I turn to. Oh, I need more wobbly. So don't turn to the SSL. Don't
yeah.
even touch it. You know,
For example, like
that's exactly what it,
this Tascam that I have, it's just like 12K, 2.5, 80, and the high mids, and
yeah,
it always blends for me. If someone wants me to work, just on Cubase without analog, I go with the same concept like 80, 250, like
yeah,
12K, whatever, and that's it. So you can actually make that work, in any way you want. Um,
yeah,
like for example, heading to my next question, it's about like all these drum plugins you're using now. With Klangmacht, Ugritone stuff, and they actually
yeah.
they really sound like analog. Like I remember the first thing that I told you when I met you, were like, dude, Randy Black, when it's coming out, please tell me. I was listening to them
Yes.
again today
No,
because
it's
I haven't bought them yet. I must tell you that. Uh, but I actually do want to
no
buy them,
problem.
and but I was listening again to the demo, and it's the room mics, all the reverb, the blending, the bleeding, everything sounds
Yeah,
so analog, and
yeah,
that's a huge difference, from other drum plugins. They just sound digital.
it it
That's it.
it it it, it has two sides to the coin. I mean, when we did it, I mean, I always took samples. I have really 35 years of samples from every production I have done. Not so, how can I say, elaborate. Nowadays when we do the stuff for Klangmacht, we have like a whole day or even 2 to 3 days sampling.
Yeah,
The process is much more, is bigger. I mean, normally in a normal production, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, to take drum samples. That's what I normally did. So I have all this, but when I started out thinking about doing new samples, I said, look, I don't want to, fool people. I don't want to go like, we record digital and then we drop it onto a analog machine and back. I don't want that. I said, because I've done that. I just came out of the last two productions, actually, the uh, Blind Guardian and the Helloween, the 2020 album.
yeah,
I recorded drums going to digital and analog at the same time. So because I wanted to have the luxury of actually layering the drum sounds and going, okay, I use this from analog and I'm gonna use this from digital. So we recorded that it got basically routed out directly onto digital and analog 24 track tape. Then and you have to work differently, and that's what going to be one of the things I'm going to be showing at MetalCon, because it made me. I had Danny basically playing like the verse part
yeah,
5, 8 times one after each other. It was easier to go like, okay, here's the 4 bars into the verse, and then we play the verse again, and I just you copy it, and everything is synced up. So the analog machine gets synced up. And you just hit record, and you pile up, and then you go like, hey, for the second verse, I want to have more energy. I want to have this and this and this, and it just gave me a total different vibe than having him play through. Okay,
yeah,
that's just what happens because he's focusing on one part. And believe it or not, I was just actually thinking about that a couple of days ago. I have not done because I read some people go, yeah, and this is how you basically record a band and they have to record together. I don't think besides live. I have not
Yeah.
recorded a band together, not Motorhead, not Saxon, not Venom, not any of the 90s work I have done where I did a basic session where the bands play together. We have done what we have done is with Saxon, for example, when I did the Metalhead, they it was basically a new band, right? They had split up, and went
Yeah.
different ways. So there was the Saxon that I worked with Biff and stuff, and we basically set up everything, and I recorded it as a live session, and he basically showed everybody the how you can put this, the vibe, the intention
Yeah.
every song has. So they were playing together for like 6, 8 times, always recording on Pro Tools, no analog and Pro Tools, blah blah blah. And then at some point, we just went, yeah, that's it. That's the vibe we want to have. And I just kept the guitars from the take before, and the drummer played again. So we had a clean
All right.
recording.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
makes
never,
sense.
I know that like, Maiden still does, or, is still known for doing a basic session where you establish the feel for a song freely without click track and stuff. And I have seen that on a different level with Mickey D, with Motorhead. He always plays, he starts out. It might not be always, not all songs, but on the record that I worked, I think it was 80% was played without click track. And it's he just starts, and you have to keep timing, and you have to, know if he
Yeah.
speeds up too fast because he doesn't want to waste the energy and things, but he just plays freely. So you have a floating kind of a vibe to it. And then I remember that Lemmy came in and he said, can we try this song, one song with click track? And I said, yeah, of course. So we recorded the same song with click track. It felt totally different. It
Yeah.
felt totally different.
That's the
And
thing
it's,
that that's the thing that, for example, I record at home, I compose at home, so I've just set up like a metronome like 140.
mhm,
So instead of trying to fit the metronome on what I am doing, I'm trying to fit
okay.
what I am doing on the metronome. And everybody's doing that pretty much these days. And it started sounding so flat and boring, because when we
Yes.
had time to go to rehearsals and we didn't care about the tempo, we
Yeah,
just played all
absolutely.
together.
Yeah, and it's when you capture a recording, it's a thing in the moment. In this moment, that's how it sounds like. This is
Yeah.
how it feels. And you keep it, and that becomes iconic. 25 years later, people go like, "Oh, this is a great record," and I go like, "I fucking can't even remember what we've done there."
But
It just happens. It's not something that you can actually plan that much. You can
I
possibly,
remember that's the thing that I remember that bands work with you, and after they stopped working with you, I didn't like them. So I must blame you for that just a little
okay.
bit. But yeah, um, like before or after you, it's like it's just a good. But everything you do is spot on. It sounds
Yeah,
fantastic. Punchy, aggressive when they
yeah,
has to, like the atmosphere. With the reverb, when you have to have a reverb, not all the time, like
yeah.
staying forever.
This
And
just gonna tell you something in a second because, like I said, I really don't do that normally. I'm not going out and watch other people, having their presentations and thing because
but
I'm just do my own thing. But he actually this guy, and it's like a really really high ranked guy, and he was actually doing the same thing. He said he doesn't have like a. I have seen it differently as well. I have seen presentations where people put like reverb just for the voice. And in the
yeah,
early days when the computation wasn't fast enough, you had to do this because you could not have like a reverb work for the low end and the high end. It would jitter and glitter and sound horrible. But I don't do that. I have like a short room, medium, long, delay, same thing, ping pong, one, take this, and then I just blend them into each other. And I create my own depth. He goes even further, which I haven't done for a long time, but I'm gonna be trying that out, to cross feed it, like,
Yeah.
the delays. I'd rather have my delays go into a flanger, to have a certain wash. I learned that from Biff Byford from Saxon. He always had that. I'm not sure if they still have it, but back then this was his thing. The flying delays always have to
Yeah.
have this
Okay.
flaky effect on it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's
I
that's
never thought of that, as a detail.
that, that's one of the things. And he was basically explaining the same thing, that he sends it into the reverb. That's why I don't send my delays into a reverb again,
No, just want my
to
delay as
mold the
a
depth.
delay. I
Yes,
prefer it like that.
yes, yeah. But it's also a matter of taste, obviously. But yeah, I because people ask me, even like the reverb we used in the Klangmacht stuff, and it's the reverb that's in there. It's two deverbs. It's just two different reverb settings blending in each other.
I
That's
remember
all.
the first layout when I first realized that there's a Randy Black plugin coming out, and when he was, with the when you just try
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah,
more reverb, and it was like that. I'm like, that's the reverb I need in my life in general. Like, I need just
yeah,
one plugin with that reverb. I don't care about anything else in my life. It
yeah,
it
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
so full, so a bit saturated.
Yes,
Uh, it sounds fantastic in general.
I can tell you it sounds saturated a bit because it all runs. Every channel runs through a lo-fi.
All right,
I
awesome.
had, I that one I learned from someone. I've seen it first with him, with Ronald Prent. He used that a lot. There's all sorts of things, but yeah, this is one of the things I shape my basic signal a lot with lo-fi, or other. Now we have this three-band saturator and stuff, and there's some more. I just seen someone who's bringing out like a 16 band or whatever, 24 band saturator for every band.
Yeah,
Let me put it like this. I think my ear is very well trained to what to do with a saturator or lo-fi. Uh, I would not know what to do with 24 bands. But that's me. I mean, there might be people who know exactly which band to push more than the other band to get a certain
it's
effect.
too much information. I think
Oh,
that,
cool.
for example, last year when I tried the Klang Habitats Cassiopeia, the saturator box, and
Mm,
I asked them if there was a plugin version, and they said yeah. So I went back home, I bought the plugin, only to explain to my students
mhm.
how a saturator should actually sound. I mean, like, that's it.
Yes.
You crank it up, that's the sound you
Yeah.
want. Instead of,
Yeah.
like Saturn, where you have to go this and mount this to a modulation, and it's like nobody will understand for the first time if I talk to them about saturation with modulation. You just want to listen how
Yeah.
it sounds when you crank it up. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
By the way,
Absolutely. It's
just as a question about the uh, your plugin or drum machines in general. Like, I found that many people, like, they get like a drum library or a contact library or whatever, and they over EQ, over compress it, over.
Mhm.
Uh, what do you think is like the best, sweet spot on EQing, compressing drum libraries? Most of the times I leave them as they are. I don't care if it sounds good, it sounds
No,
good. That's it.
it really depends. I mean, with our library, with Klangmacht, it's really, it came about because it's basically based on my STEM subgroups. I STEM, because that happens because I do a lot of live stuff. So
Yeah.
live, when I get like a huge drum kit with 6 toms and whatever, it's stemmed out to, bass drums, stereo groups, snare stereo group, toms, overheads, and then in the studio I have the rooms separated. So we based our Klangmach is based about on already compressed and how you say that, EQ'd or whatever I've been doing on my master stems. That's already in them. That was the whole point. I
Yeah.
said, look, we can go, make it a raw library, and we might go back because now we bring out actually there's going to be a vocal chain, as you saw basically in last year's on MetalCon. We
Yeah.
have the bass already. We are working on the drum channels now. And so you can actually take then anything and run it through these molded, and there's a lot of presettings in there because they're very complex. As you will see, but it's quite complex, but it's the same concept. You can go down to nothing. Okay, a little bit. That's it. Thank you. Uh, uh, so the whole principle about raw sounds is, if you turn off all my plugin chains, all my subgroupings, and the fine group, you will see in 2 weeks. It's very basic. It's
Yeah.
just you need to know what I'm more into characters. Okay, it's going to be really interesting because I'm told to use the microphones from a certain company that's going to be there and stuff, and I go like, hey, I'm all about great microphones, but to me a great microphone is a microphone that gives me a character. Okay, I walk
Absolutely.
into a session and I go like, I would like to have a more British tom sound. Then there is really no need to go with an SM57. SM57 is the typical American sound. A
Yeah.
little bit woody, a little bit, stau, how you said it, a little bit pressure zone in the upper lows. For me, a little bit too high. And,
Yeah. I mean, I'm into black metal and it's too high for me.
yeah,
So,
it's exactly. So it's not, it doesn't work for me that nice, but for British sound, I would always go for a Sennheiser 421. You
yeah.
know, now they have the short ones, so
Oh, yeah. The smaller one. But like, for example,
yeah,
I
the
like
smaller.
the Sennheiser 609,
Yeah,
and there's also the 906, or, just.
yeah. I had
I,
the for a while. I had the 604s, the clamp, like this little plastic
yeah.
one. They're really nice. Then I had a while. I had the what's the one? The D2 and D4s. It's the fucking company of American company, but they were already going back into the American, into the nicey nice. To me, that's too nice. If you want to have, I have to say they are also American. And whenever I used them, my clients came back and said, no, 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 I don't want to use these microphones. I want to use this. It's Earthworks. And really hope that the Austrian guys can match that because they have a similar concept. I haven't had a chance to check them out yet, but it's going to be really, really nice, and it's going to be quite interesting for me as well because I said, okay, then let's do that. I want to do a couple of things that I normally do,
Yeah.
and set that up with their microphones and stuff, and then we just take it from there. But the nowadays a lot of bands use Earthworks even for live sound, like the small ones with the
Yeah.
uh
I know. It's a new trend lately.
yeah, they're I mean, they are unfortunately very expensive and they're very delicate. They're very delicate to handle. But
True.
I really like them on toms. So
Like,
but
there's this pretty cheap mic that I got from Behringer. Uh, just
There's no shit mic.
it's just a clone, you know. But
Yeah,
it's like for 30 euros, and I really like it on my amps, you know, for the low end
yeah,
because it kind of saturates that a bit, and it gives
yeah.
us. So it's all whatever you know, as
Hey,
long as you keep checking your stuff, not like you don't have to start as a room producer or a room engineer, bedroom producer, you know, whatever, and go buy like a mic for 3,000 euros.
no.
If you can learn with the cheapest one, you can do miracles later.
Let me put it like this. I can show you a lot of 10 to 20,000 euro microphones that are shitty. It's very
Yeah,
simple. Because there is no shitty, there's no such thing as a shitty microphone. There's the right microphone for the job, and there's the not so right. But for that, you have to know where you want to land. You
exactly.
know, you can use any microphone as long as you know this is going to give me that and not this. Because otherwise, you're going to be fucking EQing the shit out of them and they're not going to sound.
Always, always.
Yes,
Like
it's like that.
I remember when I started, you know, first using mics because over here there's you know there's a guy living right here, so I can't crank up my amplifier, and at least next month I will be moving. And
Okay.
I remember, you know, trying to work with mics, and I was like, okay, you know, the amp sounds fantastic. Let's mic that up. And the mic always sounded like shit. Because that's the thing that most people don't understand. Even I didn't understand at first that it's not just how the amp sounds, it's the room, it's the mic itself. If it's too high, everything's gonna sound, you know, a lot higher.
Yeah.
So everything is just a combination of things.
Yeah, it's yes. There's a lot of variables. I call that. You know, in every where you place a microphone, what it's gonna pick up. There's a lot of things right now going on in the guitar scene. You know, where they this and this and this. Where I go like, well, okay, beats me. But you know, let's see. It's. I always try to make people take your ear and you know we turn it really down the amp so it's then it's not really driving. It's if you have a
Yeah,
heavy an electro voice speaker or you know whatever is out on the market now, and if it's heavy it needs to be driven. It needs to pump air, you know, in order to sound right. If they're too low, and we all have done that. I mean, we have, you know, we had the power soaks. There's like tons of shit I would put into a chain to record guitars. And, you know, then you just take your ear and I know people have done that, you know, you just send out like a pink noise signal
yeah,
onto the amp, you know, on low level, and you just go and either you hear over headphones with your, you know, moving your microphone, and then you see already where you have a certain sound coming out.
exactly.
But what a lot of people don't do is, I mean, I remember with Gamma Ray, we have fucking recorded guitars on the toilet. Why? Because the cone of a guitar speaker, it's like a parabol. It's what FBI uses, you know, to have a microphone pointing this way, and
Yeah,
it just bundle everything. That's what I hated on stage when you had like everything. You heard the fucking technician walking by and saying, "Oh, the guitar sucks," you know, on the guitar recordings because everything just you know gets amplified into the microphone. It's like a parabol,
yeah,
and that's like people don't get that. We had horrible sounding, you know, closed up miking setups in rooms that sounded fantastic. And it just opens up like, you know, all the tiling in a fucking toilet sounds different. And we have done that. I mean, we've put them literally everywhere, you know, but you have to have a vision what you want to do and then just try it out. I mean, we have tried out so many things that we didn't do. It's the list is probably 10 times longer than what we did in the end, but that was the beauty of it. And it's really that is something, you know, now everybody has like 10 plugins, you know, guitar wise, or 20 different models, you know, whatever is out there. fucking hell. I mean, when I do guitar sound check, half an hour, and then my ears are dead.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
really turn it up, it's you cannot decide anymore if it's good or not. So you have to have a certain thing. I have to say I'm a huge fan of Royer microphones, of ribbon microphones. There's some other ones out there as well, but ribbon is like fantastic for guitar because it's really light. It really, takes the vibrance of the air that is moved by the speaker.
Yeah,
I'm really into that. And of course, the first thing I do if someone it's really funny because now I have the feeling that people just, tell you buy 10 different plug-in things, and then you have all the sounds. And for me, I was always more like looking for and I had the luck to work with people. I mean, you don't go to Lemmy. You did not go to Lemmy and tell him, hey, I have a nice new plugin and I'm gonna imitate your sound. I saw his now he has like the bomber,
yeah,
like
and there is one.
there is
There,
one where they actually modeled it. I haven't talked to the management from Motorhead, and because I wanted to know if they really did it or not, because I recorded both Murder and Bomber. So yeah, and they have a certain sound. And that's, you hear the sound in the room, and then you have to transport that sound onto a microphone. And that's
exactly, yeah.
because if you would go with your ears like a microphone into the place and then like turn up you would be deaf. You
Yeah.
would plonk. And it's just, and so it's very interesting how the physics work there and how to get certain things and how to move it. The greatest thing I always, now I'm going to give it away. I don't, it's, I went to with Hammerfall. We recorded in Denmark, and there was a British guy, and this was really interesting. He had like a bundle of like 8 SM57s in front of the speakers, and they basically, if you think about it, the frequencies get from the cone get like pushed. So
Yeah.
his it was like a pyramid. So the microphones were like bundled, and they basically almost took the whole speaker, the whole range of the speaker. And I was like, this would be great to have in a plugin. Have do a sampling with like 15, 20
Yeah.
SM50 microphones, time aligned on the cone, and then just have a little mixing console. Instead of moving a microphone, you just move the elements that make up the whole speaker. I always thought that would be a really nice thing to actually try out and actually do.
No, that would be awesome, actually.
It's just some stuff. And I had that. I mean, when I even stopped like 2010 or so. I stopped working with Hammerfall. So that's like 20 years ago. When I saw that, I went like, "Bah, that's a great thing," because that was the first time I did some IRs. And I remember I did the presentation in for Avid, the Avid Creation Tour in Munich. I actually showed IRs that I did myself with Hammerfall, to run through. I had a Angle, a Savage 120, and I, run it through. And my point was the only DSP plugin that actually could run IRs was either Space or then the 11 plugin. You could
Yeah.
switch off the M side and you could use just your own IRs. And that was fantastic. So I remember showing that. And it's like, now it's like I've seen things now you can blend different IRs from different speakers. And
Yeah, you can even move the mics, it's
yeah, but it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've literally seen people go like, yeah, when I switch now to this set of IRs, it's gonna sound really different. And I go, what? I can fucking hear a difference. And I
there's
swear, I mean, I'm in the business in 35 years. I
yeah,
hear differences.
there's a thing that after I stopped using a lot of amp simulations,
Yeah,
uh I started going, like, for example, pedal directly to an IR, and that's
yeah,
it. But it's it's amazing how you can actually go towards a more analog sounding guitar just with a small pedal. But when it comes to IRs, most of the time I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can understand. Maybe the one is more mid-rangey
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the
I
other
mean,
one is more bassy. But I like experimenting. I don't
yeah,
think I will ever stop experimenting. Like I got my favorite amp on the planet. I say it every time and everybody laughs. Do you remember the Blue Stripe PV 112 the combo? That's all I use, and
yeah,
I fucking love it. And sometimes I'm actually using it. There's the metalizer where you
yeah,
could you know
yeah.
create some chords for space,
Mhm.
and I work with IRs from that amplifier, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy. That's it.
Yes. That's it. But that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like the personality of a player nowadays. Like when you work with Kai Hansen, I mean, he walks in and he has his old amps from the 80s, his old pedals. You can't even read what's written on them anymore. That's his sound. That's what he does. And then he
Yeah,
has plugins that he uses and he really likes and blah blah blah, which is all good. I mean, a lot of these on live stages, it's just too much money, to carry around all the
yeah, absolutely.
amps, amp racks and stuff. So a lot of people go into that, and I get hired for, doing IRs because I take an amp and I do a special IR. I do a special sweep. For I bought my camper in 2011, 2012.
I bought it the day that the second one was announced.
Yes,
I
exactly.
I bought it and I go back home with my camper. I'm like finally, and see the new like camper 2 is out. I'm like
Yeah, well, but I tell you what, on mine, I went to talk to the technicians in Frankfurt at the music fair back then, and I asked them, would you, because none of my lamps, like the first thing, the diodes die out, so you don't know where you are, and blah blah blah. So I went there, and they said, yeah, you have to send it in, and I go like, no. There's a lot of stuff in there that I'm not gonna give away, and I don't trust anybody. I would have
yeah,
to, back it up and then make sure it's really, 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 really wiped from the fucking thing, then get it. It's not worth it. But yeah, it's when I got it, I always we never use like, stuff. How can I put this? We need a certain sound, but sometimes for some odd sounds that nobody really wants to deal with. Some clean stuff,
yeah,
it is whatever. But for the heavy sounds, for the character sounds of certain guitarists, what I have done is like a week, 2 weeks of profiling different amps, different. We've went through the whole storage basically of Helloween, and we got every amp remodeled or like so it works perfectly, and then brought it all in, and we just sat down and profiled for one production. Next production we do the same thing with other ones. I mean, then we had the Black Star stuff and whatever. And we do that because once you have that all in there, then you can go like, oh, Kling, oh man, this is, yeah, and this is a
yeah.
great with this, and you just go clink, 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 and you have a sound, and you have a nice sound for a whole album. But it's not so much about, going and now everybody is what is it, Petrucci from Neural, blah blah blah, and I go like, yeah, for demoing it's fine. I mean, that's fucking Petrucci's sound. Why would I like to have that for whatever band?
Exactly,
Unless
and
you
this is your sound. I mean, like
That's it. That's so, for me that doesn't work, but people are, yeah, getting more and more into they
you know
get confused.
that's the thing, and suddenly everything sounds exactly the same. Like I remember I played a song for Christian Cole last year, and he
Mhm.
said, "Okay, nice. What are you using?" And I said, "Rockman processor, and the old distortion generator, and the metalizer. That's it." it sounded good. I didn't care like, oh, it's not a metal, whatever.
Yeah.
If it sounds good, it sounds good, and that's the thing that, for example, many people don't, you know, they, like, like, let's say the truth is, if you buy a Kemper, your recordings will go a step further from an amp sim, right?
Yeah.
But they just go with, oh, this preset. That's it.
Yeah.
Tweak
And
it. Try an impulse response. Try something,
I mean, to be honest, the only presets that I bought were the ones from Michael Wagner. And I have to say, even so they are brilliantly done, they are not for me. They sound
Yeah,
too American. It's not my cup of tea. So I hardly don't use them. And I would say maybe 10% I use some presets that on board, or coming from wherever. But 90% are my own profiles that we've done for certain productions, for Blind Guardian, for Rage, for this, for that, and then I just use, if I go like, ooh, that might sound great there, or this might sound great there. But to be perfectly honest, no, we just go on, and then for the next record, there's going to be another. And now Sasha is totally into the X effects thing. But
yeah,
he has like his pedal board thing. I mean, he does clinics about that shit. He has like pedal boards like hell, that he uses in conjunction with that. That's how oh, I have my beloved gray Marshall Jubilee blah 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 amp, and we changed the tubes and we did this and that. I mean, there were so many things. There were so many people out there that actually got started as tuning Marshall amps. Like it's they're all not there anymore. There's just a few left that really know how to do it. And now
yeah,
there's a lot of confusion and a lot of fuzz, going on where you go like, okay, it's not for me anymore. If it's great, and one thing's for sure, it's like I can give you the original Metallica sound. I mean, even like with snares and blah blah blah,
yeah.
guitars. The thing that makes it tick is the fucking riff. Da, 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 da. You can play
Absolutely.
that
Yeah,
with the fucking cheapest setup, with the shittiest sound you can imagine, and it's gonna sound great. It's the sound, of course, but this is what I'm saying. It's producing is not so much about the sounds. Yes, I want to have a vision, go for the sound, and then that's it, and then come up with the riff and come up with yeah, and there we want to have some, whatever, and I want to have some dirt. I want to hear some. We called it, the shovel of dirt.
yeah,
In the beginning, like when you listen to Sitges even, there was no dirt. This was like clean, very separated kind of sounds, but they still had some character. But later on, with all the metal stuff and rock stuff I've done, it was all about, gluing it together, making it sound. I even went totally away, and I got so many bashed, on I want to have this more separated, and that it needs to be like this and this. And I go like, no. I have like now people go and remix some stuff that I've done. I've just heard uh, a friend of mine, and he came to me and said, "Now it's ruined." Even so,
yeah.
the sound, the sonic, blah blah blah, is different now, and this might be there or not. I
Yeah, it
said,
always comes to
that's not
something
how it was
different.
intended. It was
Yeah,
not intended for that. And that's what people having a hard time nowadays, realizing. So yeah, we have
that's
to
it.
pick it
In
up again.
general. What do you think, apart from what you said, and I couldn't agree more, that what do you think that's the main problem with the new, like, mixing engineers, like younger guys trying to get there?
But,
Or
but
or maybe where should they focus more? I don't know if
we,
that
we,
makes
we
sense.
just we just did it or did talk about it. It's so too easy. It's too easy to say, have you heard my guitar sound? Yeah, but that's a fucking Petrucci plugin. Who
Yeah,
cares? I don't care. So yeah, if you bought it, how you have the money to buy it, well, great. I much rather have someone come up to me with an old Rockman, from the 70s, 80s, which you get a lot of money for if you can sell it now, and goes like, yeah, and we plug it in there and we do this and this is my sound. And I go like, ooh, cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
much more interesting. So to a certain degree, it's too easy for them. They don't know what they're doing because they haven't experienced it. They have not gone through hours and days of checking different amps. I can tell you a story from Hammerfall. We once, when I saw this British guy with the setup, and then we had like our guitar sound and blah blah blah, all was fine. And I very often had the request from my clients when we go back for the next record, we want to have the same sound. So I made sure I did photos and I had
yeah,
all the setups and in Pro Tools anyways. That's why I didn't like to use any analog stuff. It was just mic pre into Pro Tools. Everything else happened in Pro Tools because that means clink, it's there. And then, like for reamping sessions, I mean, I found out once with Axel Rudy Pell, we found out that they had changed the wiring to the cabinets. It was like single speaker
yeah.
cabinets, and they were miswired. So now the wrong amp, and we recorded always multiple amps at once through splitters and stuff. So yeah, I had the wrong amp on the wrong thing, and I could do whatever I want. It would not sound like the record before. So, I had to go back, get the amps, the little speaker cabinets, and put my microphones in front of them again, and then it worked. And it's always that's the interesting part of it. That's what really gets me, and I think that's for it's too easy. I always say I can tell you how it's gonna sound when I see the room. I see a drum room. It's actually gonna be interesting because believe me, I very often I had to record in small rooms, in
Yeah,
shady rooms. I even recorded records in rehearsal rooms, and it worked, and they were all like damned to death and blah blah blah. I mean, we were laying on room samples in 1992. When there was the S900, the Akai samplers, and then was the S1000, and there were people. Now they go like, yeah, and we now AI analyzes
yeah,
the groove of drummers and blah blah. We did the same thing. If you use Cubase or like Logic, the feel injection things where you have basically I knew a guy, he's not alive anymore, but he used to have the biggest library. He just sampled everything whenever he could found a piece of drums on its own. He would trigger it and make like feel injections. So you could have the hi-hat come from Simon Phillips and the
yeah.
bass would be played like I mean, fuck. I mean, we have done, we have literally put on grooves from other records onto our own records in the 90s. So it's
I
it's all
remember
big
I
fuss
did
about
that. Sometimes there was this there was a Manowar album. I think it was like Warriors of the World, and
Mhm.
I I couldn't even understand what the reverb is then back then. So I liked the sound,
Yeah,
and I said, okay. So I sampled it with a mic on the speaker because there
yeah,
wasn't,
yeah, yeah.
and I started adding that, and this is when I realized that you fucking stupid guy. If you just record one, everything will sound the same like a drum machine. So I said, so that's dynamics, okay.
Yeah.
But
But
that's the beauty of it. We had time to experiment.
yeah, it's like it's I don't know what drives people nowadays. I mean, if you listen or if you talk to the older bands, it's all about we want to go out, we're gonna play, we want to have fun, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah,
It's still there. It's still there in a certain, way. And of course, times change and blah blah blah. But that's what it's all about. Now it's like I don't know. They come home and before they go to dinner, they, slip down to the basement and put together a new song. I
yeah,
mean, I literally know guys that have taken a whole month to write a song. And then I know people that go Why should I be sorry that when I go to have a dump, I, create a song on the toilet and come out and go like, okay, now let's go and, do the layout for the demo. Yeah, it's all good, but it's not in the, how can I say, we lose the texture, we lose the feeling, we lose a
Exactly.
lot of things between the notes that are more important than any microphone, any expensive stuff, or we will see. I mean, the room at the MetalCon is not great. I saw the pictures and I went like, okay. And I said, oh, I need to take my PCMs because I know I've been in rooms like that, and you don't get a direct. Uh, I'm always for diffuse in a
Yeah.
huge room. The sound before it hits a wall is so diffuse when it comes back. Okay, in a small room, it's you always
Yeah,
have
that's it.
shatter, and you cannot do anything. Yeah, what you can do is, you put up like even like I took like a Marshall cap and have it face the backside, the wooden side, away from the drums, and put a PCM on there. So there's no sound hitting the direct microphone. You can put up a 20,000 euro microphone directly in front of the drums. So what are you gonna get? Like
Yeah.
a direct sound. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for character in the rooms. Now there isn't any a lot of the drum rooms that actually Land of the Free was recorded in of Schalke. It's Gelsenkirchen. It's like blah blah in a bunker, Second
Yeah.
World War bunker. The water was dripping out of the walls. Blah blah. It was horrible, but it had a certain vibe to it. It had a certain sound to it, and they had this reverb room. I remember when I got there, and they just the guy from the studio just took me and he opened this door, and he went.
That's
And
it.
like, how big is the room? And I went, I don't know. This must be a whole hall. I've seen that with Fleming Rasmussen. I know that where the studio ended, the old Sweet Silence, there was like a door, and then there was like it swung open for loading in some gear. But there was a huge back room just with storage shit. That's where he put his room microphones. It
That's
was like,
that's the beauty. I mean, like I remember I went to the new house. It's still really empty, just an empty house. And I was waiting for the guy with the van to get the paint, for the walls and stuff like that. So I remember I was just waiting, having nothing to do like that on an empty space. And I remember I did like, and I hear that. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, clap time. And I started
yeah,
recording with my mobile phone
yeah,
and just to create some reverb to see how it's working. And after that, after MetalCon, I have to go back, with rooms and a laptop,
yeah.
and that's always the,
So
the the beautiful thing about it.
Yes, and I mean, of course, nowadays there's like very modern stuff, like even like taking it's not very modern, but to take impulse responses from a room and then like folding that, and it sounds like exactly
Yeah.
like the room. We didn't have that. I mean, I have samples from snares and bass drums that you're not gonna have. I mean, the Second World War bunker is still there. I'm not sure what's in it, but it's just. It's just and everything's closed down. All the good sounding studios are closed.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. And now that the new stuff that opens up, it just looks great. But I go like, "Oh, okay. It's like, I mean, why? Why in hell? When we wanted to have a certain drum sound in the 90s or even like in the 80s, if you talk to even older guys, they go like, well, we took the money we had and we went to the best place we could afford with the best producer, best engineers for the sound we wanted to have. And we wanted to have that sound. And then we went to that studio for the guitar sound. There was an old live DDA console that everybody used because it sounded so unique for guitars. And then like you heard stuff like, they just fucking overboosted the mic pre's. Wasn't it Mötley Crüe or whoever said that they had to replace like the mic pre's every
Yeah,
hours or every 2 days because they would just blow them through because they liked the distortion of it and stuff. And it's just it was a lot of experimenting. Nowadays, it's like I think the experimenting is not there, but the results are somewhere there, or at least you believe. You go like, oh, this is the sound that they used on this record, on that record. I go like, no. I mean the variables are so big, even like for a sample, for a drum sample. I mean, I have fantastic drum samples from Whistlelord, from Room Studio One, like the big room, and you go has a compression ceiling. People don't even know what a compression ceiling is anymore, and you go like, okay, where do you put your room microphones? I don't know, in the room,
somewhere.
yeah, somewhere. Okay, you know. I don't know. It's sad till a certain point. I also don't know what they really learn. I mean, I imagine that people, got more and more into learning how to engineer, okay? Or if you do like jazz music, you had to learn how, the old guys would be playing, like the sax player would, solo the
Yeah,
scales and all that. And now, like we are 40 years later. So now when you start, you have to learn all that plus the 40 years.
exactly. And
That-
this is why I was first. I'm not gonna lie that it's something that I love since I was very, 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 very young. And there's a photo of me when I'm just 3 years old. I'm holding a cassette, and my parents allowed me, to mess with the EQ, and I did the smiley curve.
yeah,
And I always like to mess because I realized that sound was changing.
yeah,
And that's the actual beauty, that everything is changing. But lately, younger people just like to have like just one plugin for the guitars. Even worse, just a preset
yeah,
directly, and that's it. A bass line with a preset, and a drum machine, good to go. And I remember that a friend of mine actually sent me a mix, to check just the song, not the actual mix.
yeah,
And I said, but the bass sound doesn't fit with the guitar sound, and the drum sound doesn't fit with anything else.
yeah.
And he
That's
said, why? I'm like, no, it too much information to explain. Just try experimenting and change some details here and there. That's the thing. And I'm not gonna lie. I know it's a big risk. As I told you, I quit my job, and
yeah,
of course I'm afraid. That I will fuck up. It's
yeah.
it's in the job description, but I believe that there's the passion that some people, will see, like as people show your passion, they will see my passion. They will see like a
Yes.
guy who maybe will watch the show today and gets inspired to
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely.
Because of course, there are many sound engineers, or just people who just download illegally, like I don't know, Cubase, or and they say, okay, I'm selling mixing and mastering service. You're not.
No, well,
That's
they
the
are.
problem.
It's just not great. You
Yeah,
know, some it's very it gets even more like with all the AI stuff, when people go like, and I go like, okay, I mean, why? I mean, AI is literally looking for, I know a little bit about it, okay? But I went to someone who knows a lot about it and went like, I would need, because sometimes that happens, you record a live show and it's really shitty sound. Okay. Now you can switch off the vocals or some else. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be the singer. Yeah, but the shitty vocals and you switch them off, they're still everywhere because they were on the PA. They were really loud on the
exactly.
PA.
Yeah,
So then now you have like a really nice, newly sung live vocal, but it doesn't fit to the stuff that comes out of the PA and it's on
yeah,
audience microphones. So why can't we program an AI? Because I have the really shitty sounding vocals. Remember, I recorded 48 tracks. Track 37 is the vocal track with all the shitty singing that's also mixed in with the microphones on the audience recordings. And I go like, can we program it, show it to an AI, say this is what we want to get rid of in that sound? And the guy goes, that's almost impossible to
Yeah,
teach. You can teach it, this is how it sounds with the vocal, and this is how it sounds without the vocal. And then it would be able to actually do that. But this is what I want to do. I want to get rid of the fucking thing. And you can upload it to Moise soon or whatever the fucking thing is. It's not. Now that we have the plugins and every, yeah, it works. It kind of works, but it's not really good. You
yeah,
cannot remove it. And I go like, yeah, for me, it's there's a lot of mediocre things out there. And the mediocre
exactly.
things will be replaced by even more mediocre things that are done even more cheap. You will not be able to survive on that shit. You have to, yeah, what you're doing is absolutely right. You have to find your own way. You have to find your own taste and your own Handschrift, how you call that, the writing, how you actually, when you're producing, you're giving something to the recording. And this is really the important stuff. I'm not sure if that's I know it's not in the heads of 10 years ago. I did like I'm gonna do the same keynote on MetalCon about the being a drummer playing without click track or what comes out just to set up people for the things we're gonna do up in the studio. And I did that 10 years ago, and it's so, how can I put this? Now I forgot what I wanted to say. uh, when we when I've done that, that was like I said, it's so many years ago, and they actually the presentation I did went into the library because I did it on a university. The,
Yeah,
the university in Siegen had they still might have it because they are associated with Huddersfield in England, so they have what they call metal days. And, so they invited me to talk about, drums and different stylistics in Europe. What is the difference between, Northern drummers and, the music coming from Italy and, from Germany to the feelings of what comes out from America, blah, blah. So I did this whole thing. And it went right well. And like a year or so later, I met the guy who actually contacted me and put me through the whole process for this lecture thing. And he said, well, I met this producer guy. I'm not going to say his name, blah blah blah. And I'm going to told him what we are working on. And he looked at me and he went like, I don't get this. I said, my drums are 100% quantized.
yeah,
And I knew it died right there. It's like it's the same. And even if people like it, like one record, it's going to be very hard to keep it going. Because if you look at the bands that made a career out of it, how they changed, how they actually came up with new stuff. If you listen, you were saying it. I like the early Judas Priest stuff, not the later stuff. Sorry, blah 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 was the same thing. Actually, at that time, the first Rob sang Judas Priest came out like in 2017, right
yeah.
around thing. So someone came up to me and asked me if I what I think about the record, and I went like, I don't want to really talk about it because and I put it like I really think it is. I said, listen to fucking Painkiller, and then listen to that. And if you don't hear a difference, then I'm old and you're young. It's
No,
all
it
that
it
is,
it
is to
makes
say.
sense. It makes sense. For example, for me, every time because I also DJ at a metal bar, every now and
That.
then, and every time as a DJ I play Electric Eye, for example, right? The moment the guitar starts, everybody's like,
Yes.
if I play new stuff, like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like for me, Iron Maiden is just my favorites are the first two albums,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and of course I like the sound after that, but it's
I mean, they've done some great stuff, and it's also like, also the new Judas Priest stuff. It's in itself, it's greatly done,
oh, the
greatly
new
produced.
album, yeah,
Yeah,
it sounded great.
yeah, yeah, and whatever they've done, it's all good, but it does not have the same spirit.
Yeah,
And that's what that was the producer, the Greek guy, Tsangaridis.
yeah.
He actually produced Painkiller and stuff. And I know quite some artists that worked with him once, but didn't want to work with him again. For whatever reason, personal, it didn't go along well, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
also King Diamond did just one album, Conspiracy, and that was it. They never
And that
worked
was it.
together again.
But you have to give him to credit, and he's dead, and so up in heaven. And I go like, you have to give him the credit. He did something very fucking special.
Yeah.
Painkiller. It's, however it happened, why it happened, did they fight or whatever. I don't care. But this is the essence of Judas Priest. When we heard this one, we were like, there's only a handful of albums that I remember in 35 years when we were sitting in the studio and they came out and you played them and you went like, fucking hell, I have no clue how they did this.
This is what I told when we did this interview with Christian Kolle, and I said, I started around 2000 listening on my own, and I said that every album because I started buying CDs directly,
Yeah,
and I couldn't even do downloads back then. I didn't even have the internet to do that, and I saw your name everywhere. And
yeah,
this is where I actually started like how does okay, so this guitar sounds amazing, but why does my amp sound so horrible? And so this is how I started getting
yeah.
into this whole situation. And there's a friend of mine who owns a studio, Jim. He's here in Athens too, and he remembers me because he had a rehearsal studio,
Mhm.
and I was playing like in 14 bands when I was a kid. And I said, dude, I want to learn how you can do that. He said, yeah, this is why you're playing 14 bands, because every time you're going to start, you know, working with amp or the microphone or
Yeah,
maybe. And this is how, everything start changing. And after going to 2026, I'm like, yeah, it's a good album, but it's pretty identical to all others. Like, for example, I hate V30s, the speakers,
mhm.
because at some point everybody started using V30s, and
Yeah.
to my ears, everything started sounding the same pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like difference in general.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think we're all driven by trying to find new things and stuff. It's just I don't know. It's just I'm not sure if the time is still there. Like even back then. I mean, if I remember hearing "Slave to the Grind." I mean, the fucking guitar sound, and I tell you. Michael Wagner, who mixed it. I think he produced it as well. But anyways, I mean, he was responsible for the sound, and the guitars were like massive, and they were out of the middle. There were the speakers, and like 2 meters ahead were the fucking guitar wall, and we were like, how the fuck did he do that? And we had no clue. We had this was one of the albums where we're all sitting in the studio, and then I met someone, and he actually called Michael. And we said, what did you use? And he said, oh, I can tell you exactly what. And that's when I realized, oh, don't use stuff for what it's actually built. He said, oh, the Dominator 2, which was like a Rundfunk, like a radio limiter.
Yeah.
And he used that for limiting the guitars And for the spread, there was something like the Bedini Spatial Sound System, the BASE, BASE. And we all went out and bought two. It what you needed two,
Yeah, as a stereo
and
pair, right?
the stair, the stair, and it was like I think 15 grand. It was fucking expensive to hell, but it was the only way to do what later on, 2 years later, when I bought my Pro Tools rig, and I went like, oh, there's Waves, seems like a nice company, and
Yeah.
do a lot of stuff, and I'm really still big fan of their stuff. I still use it like all over the place, and I went like, whoo, what does the PS22 do? What is the S1? Does the same thing for like how much?
Yeah.
But that's exactly, now we have like all the spreading out and here this and that and frequencies here and blah, blah, blah. The only thing that really makes it happening is because it spreads out and it goes like what? Wall of sound, boom, like center. It moves around you. And it's now with all the immersive stuff, I go like, oh fucking hell, you must be joking. The people that tell you to really get the live essence and the spirit of a recording, you need to have immersive. I go like, I give you fucking 20 euros. You go out and you buy a mono fucking Beatles record or Elvis Presley record.
Yeah.
And you tell me where the spirit is.
I
Very
totally agree with that. And this, I did a lesson. Uh, I play mixes from the early 40s
Mhm.
up to 2020, 5, 26, or whatever. And they all preferred the old ones.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Also, I'm gonna share a trick. I like to do that a lot lately, and it sounds very good. Let's say you have like a Marshall amp or whatever that you like, and let's say, for example, you got like 6, 4, 6, for bass, middle, and treble, and then if I want to create like a huge wall, but I don't like to add more bass guitars or whatever, I just totally mirror it, so it's like 4, 6, 4, and for the second pair of guitars,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
most of the times it sounds massive, and instead, this is what I was talking about. Instead of just going with one preset,
Yeah.
just and I tried that, and I'm like, I'm the man. It's
Yeah.
working.
Well,
But
what you're saying, it's very interesting because I'm gonna show that on the drum recording thing. Because to me, there's like different ideas of how to EQ. And one of the major things is to understand the difference between analog. In analog, you don't have to fight for the mid-range.
yeah,
You fight for the low end because if you're using 15 IPS, you're gonna have a tight low end and a shitty high end. If you're gonna use 30 IPS, you're gonna have a wobbly low end and a nice high end. So then you don't want to use Dolby A. You want to use Dolby A maybe as an effect for the vocals, as the Americans all did, in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And we all knew how this works, but it's like you don't do that. Rock and roll is 30 IPS, so you don't have to fight for the mid range in an
yeah,
analog recording. What do you have to fight for in a digital recording? The mid-range. You don't
yeah,
have to fight for it because the low end is exactly the first time I ever realized what analog is really doing to my signals because we always were doing like drum sound check. It sounded great. And I went like, oh, I'm going to record something. And I recorded analog, went back, hit play, and it sounded totally different. All the
yeah,
tape compression, so we had to, now we have to lower this and blah, 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 try to accommodate for what actually the analog tape destroyed. Was not a good thing. The very first time I was working on the second Sitges Even record, and it was in a studio where they had a separate drum recording room, and it was connected with a little camera. But the
all
camera
right,
was, because that was 93, I think, 92, 93. Anyways, it was like boom. And I said, okay, we were done. And this was a Dash 24. It was my first digital recording, Dash 24 Sony machine and an ADT console. All brand new, very nice, blah, blah, blah. So I went like, boom, I record a little bit. And oh, the doorbell rang. So I had to go upstairs, let the guitarist in. He came back down with me and we started talking. And at some point, I must have stopped the machine and it was programmed to go stop, rewind, replay. You know,
Okay.
that's what you can do on a
Yeah.
Sony disc very easily. So boom. And then my brain did not realize that the drummer was not in the room anymore. I heard basically the playback exactly how I actually, did the sound. For the
Yeah.
first time in my life, I heard something playing back what I was intending to record. And then the drummer was just next to me, and I went like, fucking hell. That's when I realized, that's when I fell in love with digital. And yes, you have to know and you have to learn, and you can do that with EQing. Once you on a analog recording, I would always go boost the low frequency or the basic frequency and try to clean out what happens in the octaves above and then the fifth above. And that would work for any instrument on the drums. On a digital recording, I go what you were explaining to me right now with the guitars. I would go, I have like two D2, like the Focusrite plugins, the old plugins from like fucking in the 90s, that everybody could, oh, now you need the newest, blah, blah, blah. No. But
If
anyways,
it's working, it's working.
yeah, I would go flat and then I have like a little peak at 2 and a little peak at 4. And then I have another EQ directly beneath it with a little peak at like 100 and a little peak at 1K.
Yeah.
And you combine these two and you have a killer sound. All of a sudden you get like really nice mid-range. And a lot of people do that. And this is to me the secret behind EQing. You create something with a EQ, and then you counteract it. You go like you take any master, okay, and you go like in every octave, it just put a spike. What does that mean? Whenever something comes that hits the 1K or the 2K octave or the 4K octave or the 400 or the 800, something is gonna spike out more. You get
Exactly.
to
Always, always.
you get to the point where you go like, whoa, now it's too much. Now it's too much. What happens if I put a limiter on it? Now you squeeze the whole
Yeah.
thing. Or what happens if I do a multi-band compressor? That's why I have two multi-band compressors, multi-band EQ, multi-band. And I go like, fucking fantastic. Now you counteract it, and all of a sudden you created something in your EQ, excitement, that is not even there when he plays. It
Yeah.
just happens
That's the
because you're doing
beauty.
it. That's exactly what you're doing with your guitar setup. You're boosting it at the different, and then all of a sudden, whoo, something happens. And that's the beauty. That's when you're doing that, you understood what producing means.
Yeah. This is, suddenly everything became different. Or uh, lately I got this Technics deck player, and sometimes I just like to record the snare directly to it, and from there back and blend it, and everything becomes more like a I'm back to being a kid, being able to play with my toys.
Yeah.
And I believe that we never actually grow up. We
But
always,
you're using that as a cassette player? Is
yeah.
that okay?
I record the snare and from the tape back to the audio interface, and
Yeah.
blend it in overheads. So
Yeah, yeah. But what actually happens there? Let's go on a little physical excursion and let's think about it, what really happens on this. Besides that you like it and you have a positive
yeah,
vibe about it. That's not touched with what I'm going to say. What actually happens? You have not a 30 IPS, you have not a 15 IPS, you have a 7.5, 7 and 5 inches per second. speed. So you have a very low speed, and you have a literally, even if you have a great tape deck, you have a tape deck with a crosstalk between the
Yeah.
two coils that actually do the stereo, because a lot of people don't even understand how 24 tracks work. It's like track 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and on. On the other side, there is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So what is the adjacent track from on 24? Oh, we need to have time code because otherwise we cannot lock it to anything. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so what is the adjacent track? They always told us never record like a cowbell right next to the time code. Why? Because the crosstalk would just, diminish the signal and you would have dropouts and you would go out of sync. So what have we done? I know people that said, "Well, I have recorded on 22 and it's doing that." I said, "Yeah, because that's the fucking adjacent track because it's uneven, even."
Yeah.
So that's the same you're doing in your cassette deck. That's actually the crosstalk. This is the nice thing you want to have from analog, like the ghostiness, and then the print through. Okay, if you store a tape tail out, where is the echo? Okay, this is you know how the tape works. It's like little magnets. It's million
Yeah.
of little magnets bind in it's actually rust. That's a ferro tape, ferro steel. It's rust bind in a backbone or a back layer, which is plastic. That's why it doesn't go away. And now you're running it over something that goes minus plus minus plus minus plus minus plus minus. That's how a waveform and a complex waveform is made out of a lot of different basic waves that just add up in their amplitudes to create a complex waveform. That's how it works. And you have that on the tape. If you store it tail out, okay, your print through, the magnet that actually kind of goes in the next layer it lies on, happens in the signal. Okay, so you don't have a ghost signal. Okay, if
Yeah.
you if you want to play with the ghost signal, you have to store it tail in. You have to store it on the main thing, not on the pickup reel,
Yeah.
on the distribution reel. Then your print through will be before the signal. That means now if something has an onset signal like a vocal, da, 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 on the huh, you're gonna hear the huh before. But once the signal is there, so you go like that sounds shitty, but you go mute and you open it up right when it happens. Now you have the ghost signal going
Yeah.
on all the time.
And this
And
how
that's
everything
that's the
changes.
beauty.
Yeah.
That you cannot get with any digital shit.
This
That's
this is why
the
I love.
closest they were with Heat in Pro Tools because it was on separate tracks
Yeah.
and that they because now you have the print through, you have the ghost tracks, you have you cannot cut off between the tracks 100%, so you have some crosstalk between the tracks, and you have the crosstalk in the analog board as well. If you run that onto a digital board, you're not going to have crosstalk between any channels. You have to still have the crosstalk on the tape, but it's not adding to the crosstalk, or the crosstalk of the analog board is not adding to it. And that's how it works. And that's the magic glue. Now you have to, when you work digital, you can actually, get this glue happening. It's not a big problem. You just have to work differently.
Yeah.
And you
Exactly.
have
And
to.
a
I do
lot
a
different.
lot. I do a lot with compression and limiting to actually get this ghosty kind of sound. I love that. Some people hate it. Okay, fine with me. You don't have to do this, but that's how I would go for it. And there's so many possibilities. And I got Motorhead. I literally got the guy who I was telling you about, who brought them over to Europe. Every time when they played Hamburg, he got it recorded on a digital mobile, on an analog mobile. the Gaga Mobile, it was called. Gaga Studios. It was all analog, 48 tracks, blah, blah, blah. The whole show was recorded. He always got it mixed, sent it out to Lemmy, and Lemmy went like, no, we don't want to have that. Because he said, we have like No Sleep Till Hammersmith was the only live record up till then. And he said, we're not going to do that. And I said to the guy, I said, can you give me the tapes? I just want
Yeah.
to try something, let's see if we can come up with something. So I got the tapes and I transferred them over to Pro Tools in a really nice and big studio in Hamburg. And I went and I literally set up my rig in my living room and I just put on headphones and I just started mixing. And I mixed the whole record. And then I went to the guy and went to, here, that would be my idea. And, he sent it out to Motorhead and Lemmy heard it and said, that sounds great. I want to do this. That's how it happened. It wasn't like the ooh analog magic trick. It was recorded analog, but and
Yeah.
we kept it in the analog realm but it was completely done on a Pro Tools system. There was no board involved. Then they came over and we worked on the live stuff because he had a fuck up in some lyrics that in the heat of the moment. So he wanted to redo one or two spots, where to fix the vocals, but then he couldn't because he was so sick when he came over. He had a
Yeah.
bad cold, so he couldn't do it. But when we mixed, and it was really funny, some funny stories about that. But anyways, when we mixed the record, and then he came and he said, "Well, Charlie, what do you think? Would you like to work on another record, a studio record with us the next year?" And I went, yeah, yes.
Absolutely. I think I would start crying. I don't know.
Yeah, but hey, there's a lot of nice stories about that. But yeah, that's how it happened. So it has nothing to do with this must be done like this or that.
Yeah.
I I just hit the right nerve and just brought out what I thought would be the essence of the record, yeah, or of the performance of the live performance. And it just worked and it became everything louder than everybody else.
And that again, and you worked on an album together, and you always have. Oh no, actually you always can identify what the band needs. Like, well, of course, that's a thing that everybody should do either way, but it's like do it like Charlie. That's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah, it's I think you have to trust your instincts. It's more you teach yourself the instincts to listen to something and go like, I would do that with that. I would go that direction, and that might sound great, or that might give it a nice direction. And then one thing, never change the direction.
Yeah,
I've done it. We all have done it so many times. You go till a certain point and then you go, ooh, ooh, oh no, 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 we go this direction. Oh no, oh, no. It has to sound more like that. I have facsimiles, they were called from the 90s. We were actually mixing Angra, Angel's Cry. And I got a fax back. We had the first mixes done, and I had a certain concept because I knew, he has a very delicate voice,
yeah,
not very falsetto-like, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, we cannot get over a certain aggressiveness in the sound. I don't want that because I want to have him to really shine. And it's, that's what it is. And so we sent that out to the Japanese record company, and I got a fax back saying, yeah, well, Japanese kids love the sound of bass drum. That's why the bass drum has to sound like in the Gamma Ray album, which I have done. So it was not that they told me it needs to sound like Metallica. They want to have the bass drum sound of Gamma Ray. And I went back to the band and I actually showed Andre the facts and I said, no, I don't want to do this. So
yeah.
we and the funny thing is, it was predicted, the Angel's Cry, to sell like 40,000 in Japan. And it doesn't happen a hell of a lot of times. I mean, these were the times when we already started descending in sales and stuff. But I said no. The Japanese, this is when I go to Japan now, and I meet the record company, they all have like, oh, it's Charlie-san, Charlie-san, blah blah, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? I, I don't want that, but I have their deepest respect because I said fuck off,
Yeah.
and the record sold over 120,000. We went gold in 4 weeks. The only thing that makes you right in this fucking industry is having success. This is, I have worked with a lot of bands that I've done some really good, iconic kind of records, but they weren't really the most selling ones. I mean, if you take Steps from CJ7, everybody goes, fuck, this is a brilliant record, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it sold more than 10,000 or maybe 15,000 back then, and which was nothing really. But
Yeah.
it still has this. I was never for the record companies. It's you learn your place and you're somewhere in between and you have to. But if worse comes to worse, it's always the artist. It's not the client, it's the artist that is right.
Yeah.
And very often I get asked, why does a record sound like that? And I have this one Swedish guy, he once did an interview with me and he was basically telling me about a record that he really dislikes. And
There are certain things that, for example, back in 19, we released an album,
Mhm.
uh, and the label was Hell's Headbangers from USA. It's a kind of underground,
Yeah,
famous
yeah.
label, and it was sold out like that, 2,000 copies, and they didn't, not much, but it was sold out, so I was really happy, And we did the second album, and I paid a lot more attention to compose better,
Yeah.
and they didn't like it. So it's,
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. This is,
but I remember I said that we're gonna use the exact same bass tone, guitar tone,
yeah,
that tone, so it's like a sequel,
yeah.
but more aggressive and more maybe this lead instead of that lead, and
But hey, it has a lot to do with luck, being lucky of doing something and that people like it. I don't
yeah,
have learned that this is the least thing that should actually, get to you when people don't like what you're doing. Like just want to totally finish the story about this Swedish journalist. And I have my things with journalists, to be perfectly honest, because it happens quite a bit. But anyways, he came to me and he said, "Oh, I really hate this record, and this is this." And the band was in the same room. And I looked at him and I said, like, yeah, if I remember right, I mean, it was 20 years ago, whatever. If I remember right, I mean, I came in here, and we sat down and I said, look, we're gonna make this record sound like this and this and this. Because in 20 years, a stupid journalist from Sweden is sitting in front of us and he will hate it. Just to piss him off,
yeah,
just to piss him off, we're gonna do the record like this. And I looked at him and said, do you really think you're that important? And we
yeah. I
both
mean,
started laughing
they
because it's pathetic. I can totally understand if people, hate what I'm doing because one thing I learned is if you hate it and you loved, you have something to say.
always, always. But
If you just eh, then nothing.
no, I mean, for example, I totally agree with you about journalists and people doing reviews on albums. I've met some over here in Greece, and they think that they are even more important than the musicians. I'm like,
Yeah. It's like,
why? You just
yeah,
write if you like it or not. I don't care if you like it or not.
I remember I have a few journalists that I go really along really well. And this one journalist in the 90s, I had in 1 month, I had the album of the month and what they called the ass bomb of the month, the worst album ever. in this month from the same journalist, same producer, same guy who did it, me. And I said,
Okay.
this is what it is. I said, I'm sorry that you don't like it. I hope some other people like it. And yes, there were always some other people who said, wow, great. And then someone else said, oh, this is shit. And then, of course, nowadays, there's a lot of people who can actually make them hear. Look, in the 90s, if the kid of the bakery somewhere in the outskirts of Australia didn't like what I was doing, I couldn't care less because
Exactly.
there was no voice actually saying that. He was not heard. Now he's like going online and he puts it right there and he goes like, "Oh, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it," and I go like, "What does that change?"
Yeah,
Would
nothing at all.
I mean, for me, it's over. That's what's the snapshot we've done as the artists, me together in that time frame. We're not
Absolutely.
we're not
Absolutely.
gonna redo it just because you don't like it. And if you read that, I mean, you can read that about any record everywhere. Of course, then there's some records that everybody's hyped about and blah blah blah. And this is nice, and and that, of course, I rather have a record being perceived well than having a record that is not so well perceived. But in the end, it's if you have something to say, you will always find your enemies. And
That is so true. So true. By the way, just a question about MetalCon. You're going to do the drum masterclass for 2 days in a row,
yes,
12:30 with Bastian. He's
yes,
recording and you are
yes,
he's playing, performing, and you
yes,
will be
yes,
recording.
yes,
And you're also going to talk about production, as you said.
yes. It's gonna be more about production than sounds.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to have some great sounds, but it's more like getting different performances. I hope that in the end, people will sit there and actually feel the difference. And I will show them because I've just also read some stuff on the internet where people asking you, well, I have done it like this, I've done this and this and this. How can I get like a quantized, for example, I take a quantized demo, like program drums, program guitars, blah, blah, blah. And then Basti is going to play it without anything.
All
He,
right.
without click track, he's just freely going to play it. And we're going to, what I call like a liquid tempo map,
Yeah.
which basically, and then I'm going to show you how to actually go in and make a drum break, whatever he does, we're going to fiddle around with. And then, of course, we cannot hear the whole record. We cannot
Yeah.
hear the whole song. We want to hear it with the playback. So we're just going to take the fully quantized playback and quantize it onto the his performance. So you can actually hear it, what it does with the whole. Of course, it's not perfectly, I wouldn't release something that is manipulated sound-wise, especially if it's like guitars and stuff, because you will hear little glitches, but you will get a really, really, deep insight how it differently feels if someone plays through, if
Yeah.
someone plays it without a click track, if someone plays it part by part without a click track. We're gonna play the chorus 5 times and then we just splice it together, and just make different approaches to how to make a drummer that's gonna be. You can do the same thing with guitars, but it's like more of a drum thing, uh, to try to create different feelings, because I have done that. I've done it on
Yeah.
records, and I swear there's songs that are quantized and there's songs that are not quantized. You will hear the difference. It's
And
it's a different vibe. You
that
can
should
go
be
to.
really interesting. And are you also going to do like a mix critiques or just avoid it for this year because you had
No, no,
enough
no.
last
I'm
year?
I'm I'm very actually. If we are supposed to have some discussions about production styles and stuff, and if someone asked me, I will sit down and listen to some mixes as well, and
Perfect.
give comments, which is I would be very flattered if someone would ask me, but it's up to Ingo's discretion. I know that he has me planned in for some more heated discussions. Let me put it like this. So because sometimes it's like you have five people who say, yeah, this is like this, yeah, this is, yeah, 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 yeah. He wants to have more of a, you know, heated discussion about, I do it like this, I do it like that. What is better? Because it's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to come about
Okay,
it.
so I'll have to buy some popcorn for that.
Yeah, you have to. It's going to be interesting. I mean, remember last time when we did this panel thing about drums, and
Yeah.
I think I got asked when was the last time I recorded real drums, and I was like, I'm sorry, what are you asking? He said, well, when have you recorded the last time natural drums, a drum kit? And I said,
Like
"Huh?"
yesterday.
Well, no, no, I was saying nobody is paying me for taking programmed drums onto a sample library. I said, you can do that yourself. Can you do the same thing recording drums? Hmm. I might be a little bit ahead or might bring something to the table that is worth some money, but that's more the discussions I would like to do, with other people because there's like Bogren is there and we are all like, doing our things. And of
Yeah.
course, it's going to be very interesting. I think for me, there will be a lot of things to learn from everybody. I mean, I never stop learning, and it's like it's going to be a really interesting thing at MetalCon. I'm really looking forward. We will see. I mean, we kind
Yeah.
of swing the drum production because I said, I don't want to like pre-rehearse everything. I mean, Basti is gonna pick a song that he knows, from his band, that he can play because I said, look, I want you to play through without hearing anything. Nobody's gonna play along. It's
Yeah.
just gonna be you. You start, and I'm gonna, count you in, and I'm gonna hold you on speed, blah blah blah. But that's how we gonna do it. And then we're just gonna compare it. I might miserably fail. Have I failed before? Of course. That's the beauty of it. You never
Exactly.
know what
Exactly.
happens.
Like I remember the first time you said the please come back tomorrow because there
Yeah,
was some issue with Pro Tools and the
yeah, yeah,
monitor
yeah,
that was closed.
exactly. It's always the same. It's it shouldn't happen, but it happens, and
Well,
it's
but that's the thing. This is another lesson because it's actually live. You know,
yeah.
many
It's
things can go wrong.
no, that yeah. I'm pretty sure something will go wrong. I hope it's not gonna be the so time consuming that we fuck up the whole thing. But it's gonna be a little bit more complex. It's not for, let me put it like beginners.
Yeah.
It's like it's a process of, you have to be swift to understand what's going on Pro Tools, like the technical side of it. But it's gonna be quite interesting. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure.
can't wait for that. And by the way, if things get heated, I'm Greek, so I'm hot-blooded. So just do something like that, and
And we will,
I'll attack directly as a typical Greek. It's a part of our DNA.
yeah, here you go. Okay,
So just do something like that, and I'll know what's
okay.
going on.
Then you jump in for me. Thank you very much. That would be
By the
great.
way, I'll be a day before the
Yes.
MetalCon.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're gonna be in and setting up and stuff, so we will be upstairs and
Awesome. So maybe I don't know. No, I don't have
yeah.
your phone number. Maybe I'll just text you and see
No,
what's.
no, no. I give you my phone number. You just yeah. Just come by. I mean, I really don't know how this is
I'll
security wise in the building or anything, but I don't think so. That
I'll
it's
be arriving at maybe like 7 in the afternoon or something
okay.
like that. So,
Yeah.
man, I want to thank you for that.
Welcome.
I thought it was going to be an hour, so sorry if I kept you,
No,
a
no,
lot
no.
more.
This is good. I have another 10 hours in me. I can tell you stories and stuff.
We can arrange the second part then.
Yeah. Actually,
Absolutely. Maybe
actually,
maybe some stories because you already told me some stories that you have
yes,
to share at some point.
I know. I just have to be always a little bit careful, but yeah, let's do that. I mean, Let's do it like this. We put this up and then we see how people react and
Absolutely.
if they like it, and then we decide if we do a second one.
Absolutely. So thank you
I'm
so
sorry.
much for this.
I'm thank you. It's really great.